Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. It is Wednesday. It's the Devil's Advocate, but it's not the Devil's Advocate as it normally is. Dave, unfortunately, is under the weather, and we're hoping to do a secondary version of this. So you two Devil's Advocates this week, either tomorrow if he's better, if not on Friday. I hope you are all keeping yourselves out of trouble. The Euros is mere hours away, days away, and England go into it with about as much enthusiasm and form as Tottenham's second half of their season, I guess. Johnny, welcome back to the show, mate. Before I get into the comment section, how are you, buddy? It's good to see you.
I'm all right. I'm all right. Listen, how can anyone be enthusiastic? We have the man who I can't even mention his name, the man who can turn the finest champagne that the UK has to offer into urine. Right. Honestly, I've never known anything like it. Yeah, I mean, he's killed a lot of expectations. I've never seen such an amazing squad of talent go to a championship and have the flat line amongst the fans, because that's how it feels. The enthusiasm is just... It's just not there. I think to have more excitement about the Copa America for some unknown reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're back to silly season, Sean, where we're linked with every man who has two legs and can kick a football.
Do you know what, though? I absolutely love this part of the season. Obviously, as a content creator, generally speaking, it's the time of the year when everyone wants to know what's going on. But I'll be entirely honest, the way that I don't know if it's because of the Euros, if it's because nothing's going to really happen, or it's going to be unlikely that things are going to happen in the next 2 or 3 days before some of those players that are needing or looking likely to need to leave before the end of the month. I don't know how it's all going to happen, but I feel like it's been a bit of a damp squib of an opening, with the exception of, I mean, the only transfers I could think of that have actually been kind of confirmed so far is obviously Timo Werner to Tottenham on loan. And the one club that you expected, and I'm going to save a segment for this at the end, right? This FFP ridiculous situation. I talked about it briefly on my video towards the end of my video yesterday. I've lost entirely complete faith in the Premier League, and by that, indirectly meaning the power brokers within each club, to be able to do the job that they're supposed to do. Like, in order to have presented an amendment last week that would have stopped teams like Chelsea not only selling their hotels to themselves to get themselves out of last year's FFP dilemma, but because they presented an amendment that was vague and broad and non-specific around what infrastructure assets means, even the clubs that wanted to approve it rejected it, because the people that wrote the amendment, the lawyers or whoever, they're getting paid hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds, like thousands of pounds an hour to do a bit of a job. And I swear to God, I could have written a more specific amendment than these clowns. And of course, so it's been rejected, right? It's been rejected. And the next time, but there's every intention that they still want to implement the rule, but that won't happen now for ages. And so Chelsea have been able to spend £1 billion, 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion, I think it will be.
Yeah.
Now they're going to be able to sell their training ground to their sister company, spend as much more as they want. And they're the only other team that look busy in the market. And this is the team that's supposed to be the one team that's not doing anything because they're supposed to be in trouble. The FFP thing is an absolute disgrace, Johnny. We'll talk about it in more detail.
Can I just add to that? Can I just add to that? Because this has been a real bugbear of mine, okay? We have a Chelsea team that were buying up every bit of youth, had 32 players out on loan.
Yeah.
32 players on loan.
Ridiculous.
And then what happens is UEFA turned around and said, we can't have this, right? So what happened? It affected everybody. So because Chelsea were doing that, we had to change the rules. Then it was 8, 7, 6 maximum allowed. Then they came up with, let's do 8-year contracts, which no one else was doing. Now they're going to do that, but it's after the horse has bolted.
Yeah.
Chelsea there's not meant to be multi ownership within the same league. Yet we have the Saudi PIF fund, right, owning Newcastle, yet happen to be the biggest shareholder in Clear Lake Capital, who happen to own Chelsea, who happen to travel to Saudi Arabia to get some money for the thing. And
last summer they sold 4 players to Chelsea. This summer they're about to sell Lukaku to 40 million quid to Saudi Arabia as well. I mean, that's
and now this. And now
there's so much more. There's so much more behind the surface, right? Forget about Chelsea's. You know what? Let's talk about it now. Let me press pause for 1 second and rush through and say hello to everybody, guys. Sorry, we like, you know what Johnny and I like. We'll just get straight into it and then we'll forget all about you. Alan Botha Smith, you've been here for a while, waiting for the show. Good. I hope you're still here. It's good to see you. Era Van Gogh, good to see you. Kulu's elusive right foot, Gammy's. Hammy, good to see you, my man. By the way, I've not seen a trio this good since the Beastie Boys. Even if I want to do a deal, there are now 3 other parties that need to be on board for it: the club, the national team, and the player. Exactly. It used to be the buying club, the selling club, and the player. Now it's the buying club, the selling club, the player, the national team coach, the fitness people. It's ridiculous. Nick's in the house. Good to see you, mate. Great to see you. William Webb, Adrian Schroeder. Great to see you. Brian, Drew Zilla. Big up, everyone. Hope you're all well. Smash the like and remember to sub if you haven't. Looking forward to another great show. Yeah, guys, this has been our first live stream in 2 weeks. It's been chaos in the
starting to get the shakes, Sean.
I know, mate.
Withdrawal symptoms. You can't.
YouTube even messaged me. YouTube sent me an email saying, "Do you realize that you haven't live streamed as regularly as you usually do, and you're missing out on views and some blah 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 blah?" And I was like, "I know that. I would do it if I could, but life's in the way." We got the Sean Butler view. Oh God, is this a soccer count? I don't know if this is going to be someone who's nasty or someone who's nice, but welcome. Scott Colliver, member of the show, good to see you. Lee Harvey, member of the show, good to see you.
Afternoon,
I'm just going to quickly say hello to all of the members because I've got loads to talk about with Johnny. But welcome everybody else as well. Luke, great to see you. Who else we got? I think that's it. RFS 1899. Big up to all of you. I hope you are all well. Please smash the like button for me like you always do. By the way, guys, if you're a regular watcher of the uploads, I've got to say it in real time. I am so unbelievably grateful for your engagement. You know I ask every video. Everybody asks every video. I don't know if it matters the same on live streams as it does in uploads, but when you guys hit the like button, it triggers something that puts it out to more people. And the channel's grown like 1,000 subscribers in about a week. And it's all because of your like game. 2,500 likes on one of the videos on Saturday I put up, over 1,800 on most videos now. It's just insane. I'm so grateful to all of your support on the channel, guys, and to you, Johnny, of course, as well. And
yeah,
Dave
Sean,
and the guys,
I mean, guys, I've got to be telling you, right, off air, Sean told me it was all me.
It is all him. That's why I've not been doing any live streams recently. I'm like, I've got to try and sort of get back some sort of control of this shit.
Bugsy,
what's going on?
The videos. I mean, everybody loves the videos when you're out with your thoughts with Bugsy or him. They're great videos, and the viewing numbers are well deserved. So keep them.
Thank you, mate.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
No, there's nothing better than having someone to chew the fat with. And you know what? Bugsy, as lovely as a little puppy she is, she
doesn't answer back.
Well, she does, but she says the same thing all the time, and it's rough. So look, before we get into the plan of the show, guys, just for what it's worth, we want to go through a little bit of the news. Will Lancashire might be leaving the club to go to Middlesbrough, which will be a big hit, but he's only got 6 months on his contract left, and that's just what happens. I think Johnny will be able to explain when we get to the topic about the process of contracts. We also have to talk a little bit about, let me get my notes up. Where are we? Seville striker Youssef En-Nesyri. The links are that Tottenham or like Sevilla in a lot of trouble financially, and they would really like Brian Hill. And so that's like the story of the day, is that Tottenham have an advantage over Manchester United in that particular pursuit. We're going to talk a little bit about Mikey Moore and Tyrese Hall. because the only other real story from today is literally about that, like news story. Everything else is repetitive updates on the same sorts of players. But what I've got instead for you guys is, like, I want to play a little bit of Football Manager here with Johnny, where I've got every single player that we're essentially linked with right now, give or take. We have been loosely, tangentially, or, you know, every day you see the story. And I've got to be entirely honest. If we're looking at the sort of areas where we're looking for support, which is obviously a striker, a winger, a midfielder, potentially not necessarily just a 6, but I believe a defensive midfielder, a left-sided centre-back, and then either a hybrid left-sided centre-back with a left-back slot, like a Hiroki Ito can do, or a full-back that can do both sides, like a Kyle Walker-Peters, and or a right-back. So you've got 3 defenders, but covered via 2 signings, a midfielder, competition for Maddison, a striker and a winger. And I've got all of the names here that we've been linked with. I've got all of the valuations. I've got all of the kind of the clips or the snippets of what's going on, who we're competing with for and stuff. And Johnny, I want your help, mate, to figure out what's the best way to spend what is probably going to be a limited amount of money. And that's even including if we can get all of the players out of the door. So before we get into that, though, I do want to carry on with we were talking about PFP and FPP, sorry, financial FFP and PSR. Blaine Devlin, shout out to you, Blaine. Member 10 months says, not often I get a weekday live Sean and Johnny one-on-one action. Love it. Yeah, it wouldn't normally be one-on-one. I love Johnny one-on-one, but yeah, Dave is just
do the 3 of us.
So let's get back to, we were talking about Chelsea, right? And the fact that, yes, so Lukaku's going to be their next, overly valued sale. And, at the moment, you've got this situation going on with Manchester City that are suing the Premier League because they're essentially saying, how dare the Premier League tell anybody what the valuation of a sponsorship deal is? It's anti-competitive and it's a disgrace. And I understand why they want to do it, even though I think that in so doing, they are admitting that they have overly inflated their sponsorship deals in the past, and they want to continue to do so. They already have a competitive advantage. They started in 2008. They had 4-year head start before FFP even came in. They used it brilliantly. They created their City Football Group. They just like Chelsea buying all the youth. They buy all the youth and loan it out, and yet they want to be able to get as much money as they possibly can, Johnny. Chelsea agree with them for the same reasons you said, right? They got ambitious owners that want to spend more money, and they've got VCs in the background that have got links to endless pots of money. Aston Villa have got Egypt's most wealthiest man.
They just joined today. They're potentially threatening to join the lawsuit because they've got endless pots of money, like you say. Yeah. And what they've realised is, hang on, I bought a football club for X amount of money, and you're telling me I've got all this money and I'm not allowed to spend it? That can't be right. I want to spend it. I want to buy every great player that's on the planet. Well, something has to give. Rules are rules, right? There's no point having a rule, and then when someone breaks the rule, you go, well, okay, well, it was you. We'll let you off this time. It's happening too much. It's become a farce. We're becoming the laughing stock, basically, I believe, this league, with what's going on right now.
But is who's to blame here, right? Like, the Premier League rules are, the Premier League teams get together with their accountants and their lawyers and their advisors, and they say, these are the amendments this month, right? Or this year, whatever it was. I think they meet once a quarter, but most of the amendments that are discussed throughout the season take place in the June meeting. It happened just now. For example, there were 3 amendments this time around. One of them, Wolves put forward an amendment to scrap VAR altogether. And I think that, according to polls I saw on Twitter, that is overwhelmingly supported by the fans. They don't want VAR at all, but the majority of the teams rejected it. They said, no, they want to keep VAR, but they do want to see improvements. One of the other things was this idea around stopping third party or stopping sales to sister companies within your group, paper profits, essentially, to be able to robbing Peter to pay Paul. And, the Premier League, it makes sense. And the majority, there's the 4 teams that always reject: Chelsea, Newcastle, City, and Villa. But the rest are all on board with the idea of it. But who's at fault? Is it Chelsea's fault for loopholing it, for being smart enough to figure out, well, look, they haven't closed that door, so we'll go and get some value here. We'll walk through that door when that one's closed. But the Premier League put forward a proposition that had so many, it was a sieve. It had so many holes in it that it was ridiculous. So I'm sitting here thinking, I don't blame Chelsea for taking advantage of loopholes. It's the difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance, right? For me, it's like you can limit the amount of tax you have to pay as long as you don't lie and circumvent the system. Chelsea are just using the system to their advantage. And the fact that the rest of the Premier League teams who get paid millions in lawyer fees can't put together a thorough document that closes out all the loopholes. To me, it's not on Chelsea. To me, that is on the Premier League. It's on Daniel Levy. It's on the guys at Arsenal, at Crystal Palace, everywhere else, who want there to be a level playing field, but are not clever enough to think of all of the things that one club can outthink them in loopholes. It seems to me it's stupid.
It's almost like they're scared. I mean, I do believe that Chelsea are the poison, but I believe that, you know, the Premier League haven't eradicated the poison right from the start. Abramovich was the initial poison.
Yeah, he was, 2002.
Abramovich manipulated, paid off people. The goings on, you know, if we delve into the Abramovich era, I mean, God knows how many rule breaks there are amongst that. I mean, the fact that that money still has not been paid out, and I believe Sean is still sitting in the account. The money
for what? For the hotels?
For the buyout. Yeah, no, for the buyout, the original money is still sitting in an account somewhere.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Where it was meant to go. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
To the victims of the Ukraine war.
1 point something billion. Yeah. I mean, listen, look, Chelsea broke, as I said before, Chelsea broke the rules, pushed the boundaries on buying up everyone, even though they didn't want them. We got all the money. Let's buy everybody and loan them all out. So they cut that loophole. Then it was the 8-year contracts. Then you know, it was the, you know, selling it to yourself, selling items to yourself.
I was also going across to Saudi Arabia, coming back 24 hours later, and within 3 days, 4 players have been sold maximum value. Like if you're not allowed to, if every time that you sell, if every time that you sign a sponsorship deal, then it has to go to some committee somewhere that determines whether or not that's based in reality. And remember, Manchester City's Etihad deal is like 92% above the equivalent valuation of any other sponsorship deal that has been signed on a per brand valuation basis in any other sport in the world. So it's clear that Etihad deal is miles above.
You can break records. Look, there's nothing wrong with breaking records. Records are there to be broken. Historically, that's how it works. But, you know, for me, when you have someone, say, for example, you have QSI, right? Within QSI, there are God knows how many different companies within QSI. So it's like if Spurs were taken over by QSI, and then QSI, one of his subsidiary companies, then became the stadium sponsor, giving us 100 million a year for the naming rights, right? Then they became, instead of Getir, it's whoever on this. Yeah. Then they name it, then they do the kits, the board advertising. But they're all companies within subsidiary companies within the one umbrella company.
Which is fine as long as they stick within a standard deviation. Well, as long as the valuations are within a standard deviation of everyone else's.
Correct.
You know, as long as they're reasonable. But Manchester City's weren't, and they're arguing that they should be allowed to do what they want. But then to me, the next question will be, even if that rule is implemented, maintained, upheld, and City have to at least be reasonable, you know, and within reason, because they're the biggest revenue generating football club in world football, I think, other than Real Madrid, maybe it's them, maybe it's not, then you could make the argument that they could generate and justify a brand deal that is at the highest end of them, just not 90% higher than where it should be. But the next question to me is, if that door is then closed, can you make the same assessment about assets? Like, for example, Chelsea selling Lukaku for 50 million quid to Saudi Arabia when the guy was sent out on loan for the last 2 years because
no one wanted
him. No one would pay the money. And so all of a sudden, your mate, who also is the biggest shareholder in your biggest club share, like, can you, at what
this
point
is what's wrong, Sean. This is a fundamental thing that it's clear. This is fraud, in my opinion, and corruption right in front of our eyes. They're not even hiding it. Like I say, PSI own Newcastle. They are the Saudi PSI fund, the Saudi National Fund, the richest fund in the world, right? They own Newcastle. They're the biggest shareholder in Chelsea. There is a conflict of interest. I don't want to hear anything else, right? They are the biggest shareholder, and therefore they're doing business. The funny thing is that Todd Boehly and the guy who bought Todd Boehly to Spurs to try and take over, that could have easily been us. He's a Spurs supporter, the guy who's organised all this,
right?
Who's now got rid of all his Spurs stuff off of his socials, to speak. And he's the guy that's involved in all the finance and the property deals.
But would you want that sort of owner at Tottenham Hotspur?
Well,
it would be so exciting as a fan to sit there every single day going, oh, today we're linked with Mbappe, tomorrow we're linked with Gyökeres, the next day we're linked with, insert whatever name there. As a content creator, it would be sensational. But do you think Todd Boehly's done a good job? Ultimately, at the end of the day, Johnny, you still have to, he is an investor. He is not someone who has more wealth in the ground than it exists in existence, and whose mission statement is different. For Saudi Arabia, for Etihad, for Abu Dhabi, for Qatar, for these guys, there's their ideology is not, or what drives them is not about making a return on investment necessarily. They don't care about money. What drives them is being the very best in a global sport and allowing it to somehow have some collateral impact on the brand of where they're from. And I think that there's a different motivating factor. But for Todd Boehly and Clear Lake Capital, those guys are eventually looking for some sort of ROI. And whether or not they're robbing Peter to pay Paul,
return on investment to those guys who were wondering what he was talking about.
Return on investment, yeah. Sorry, yeah. But whether or not they are robbing the Peter to pay Paul, moving the training ground around so they can kick the can down the road, at some point in the future, they're going to have to pay the Pied Piper. And at the end of the day, they spent £1.2 billion, and they just qualified for the weakest competition in Europe, for the Conference League that doesn't even, and that first of all exposes them to tighter rules than in the Premier League, but also doesn't offer them any kind of compensation that will make it worthwhile. To me, I don't know if Todd Boehly is what any fan of football should want running their club.
There's people behind him, Sean, who are very, very intelligent people. Look, the bigger picture is they've been doing this deal for the last year, a crucial bit of property at Chelsea, which can change hands for around about 60, 70 million, which will enable them to develop the land. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And this has been going on.
This is for the stadium, is it?
Yeah. I've told people about this a long while ago. It's the same guy as the Spurs fan who's been sorting it all out. But look, the thing
is that what the one? Because I remember when they took over the club, they had the debt written off by Abramovich, and they paid $2.5 billion, but they also promised, I think they paid 2.5 or 3 billion. I forget what they paid, but they also allocated £1.5 billion towards the club's future spend, and I assumed that was where the 1.2 billion was coming from. But are you saying that money's allocated for the stadium rebuild?
Well, I know that they want to do the stadium. It's about, I think it's rotating the stadium, and this particular piece of property was one of the key parts of that development. But we're talking years down the line. But I just think there's a lot of money behind him. There's some top lawyers behind him, top lawyers, and they've exploited it. Look, Chelsea have pushed the envelope again and again and again, looking for those loopholes, and I got to hand it to them. They've been better than anybody pushing that envelope for years, right?
I don't blame them. I hate it. But I absolutely hate the fact that Daniel Levy, you know, like every rival fan, because the fans are split, right? Some fans say Man City 115 charges, bury these guys. If they get away with it, it's because of ineptitude at the Premier League level and brilliantly expensive lawyers at Manchester City's side. It's the same with the Chelsea thing. And you have 115 charges hanging over their head. Regardless of all of that stuff, you've got a section of the general football fan base that say that FFP and PSR is necessary because otherwise Manchester City and Newcastle and Chelsea will dominate, and then it will be a race to the bottom. It will just be everyone might as well sell to the wealthiest man, and it can just be a playground and the whole thing will implode anyway. The Premier League will be worthless, and it will be the inevitability of a movement towards the the Super League, right? Which is just as bad an idea. But the other half of the people, the other half of the fan base say, actually, FFP and PSR has just cemented the advantage that the top six have. And I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. I'm doing a load of research into two different videos. It's supposed to be one, but consequently, the things I found have split it off into two. One about analyzing trophy success historically, to figure out how much of an influence Daniel Levy has had in our absence in the last 25 years of trophies versus other things. And the other topic I'm going to be talking about in detail is PSR and FFP. But there is an absolutely legitimate argument from teams who look at FFP and PSR right now and say, how can any other team, Fulham, Palace, West Ham, Southampton, Brighton, Brentford, whatever, insert any team from sixth down, how can any of them ever break into that movement unless they go through a 20-year cycle of infrastructure spend, which has all the risk, similar to what Tottenham did, or unless they sell to a trillionaire? Like, the FFP thing stops competition as much as it prevents City from spending any more than they should be able to. It also stops the smaller clubs from being able to be ambitious. And I think that,
especially a small club like Luton or a Bournemouth, when they've got small stadiums. I personally think, Sean, that if Man City are found guilty and they lose this, that Sheikh Mansour will start to withdraw from Man City, coincide with Pep leaving. I do, because he will just go to another league where this is not going to be enforced on him. And I can really see that happening, that Sheikh Mansour leaves and, God forbid, Arsenal are the ones that fill that void, because they've invested. I think Arsenal have pushed the envelope in their expenditure. They were warned over a year ago by their expenditure by UEFA, and yet they carried on spending, and nothing's happened. And as you quite rightly put in your video a few months ago, about 2 or 3 months ago, by all rights, Chelsea should not be in European competition this season, because they have breached UEFA's own rules, the same rules which banished AC Milan from the competition, and with a big fine. Was it 2 years ago?
But that was on the presumption that their revenue, because UEFA works to percentage of revenue spend, right? But if they suddenly got if they got the hotel revenue put on it, then it would have been fine. If they get the training ground revenue put on they're probably okay. Well, the last thing I say
hasn't gone through. Can I just say to you that?
Yeah, it hasn't been approved. It hasn't been approved yet.
Still not been approved. Yeah. So my point is, if that deal has not been approved, Sean, by the 30th of June, which is the FFP and PSR deadline, that should mean that they have not met the rules. They have not met the FFP and PSR deadline. They can't do. If that deal hasn't gone through, now that they failed.
But now that the amendment regarding infrastructure, sales has been rejected, I think that they have no option but to approve it, because they're working within the rules, because the rules aren't clear. And like I say, I don't blame the people who take advantage of the system. I blame the people who are paid a lot of money to create the system and to tighten the rules and to think of things. And it doesn't take a genius. It shouldn't take a genius. These lawyers are paid thousands and thousands of pounds for an hour's work, and yet they can't go, oh, hang about, maybe, you know, there's a common theme here that clubs are able to just sell to sister companies, especially in the era of VC capital investment, where you have 6 or 7 different parties that are all spider web interlinked, you know, and that you can sell to one another with it. It's just robbing people. You know what's the biggest? Exactly the same as 777 partners, and that is a ticking time bomb.
Which is laughable. Can I just say, I'm sure I read it right, but it's a farce. The Premier League so far have spent £30 million on lawyers' fees fighting its own members.
Ridiculous.
Just think about that for a minute. We're arguing about giving the championship and what have you, grassroots football money, yet we're happy to throw away £30 million, right? Arguing and defending ourselves against our own members, when if the rules were in place, and they were stringent, black and white, this is the fine, this is the points deduction, and you've all agreed and it's all written in law, then you don't need to spend £30 million. It's because the bloody laws have been written up so poorly, with holes like a sieve, as you said before, that they're finding their ways through it.
And you know that there's 4 or 5 other loopholes that they've already figured out that they just haven't used yet, and we haven't heard about them yet. But there's the next one coming as well. You know, look, it's an absolute joke. Last thing I would say, because you mentioned Arsenal, for what it's worth, and I hate to say this, but during the research I've been putting in for this video I was going to do, because once I sort of been looking at, well, who has won the trophies from 1950 to 2024, a 75-year review in blocks, right? Who's won the trophies? Who are the consistent themes? Who's won solo entities? You know, can you kind of like chip off some of the ones that are like, you know, one team that has only won one trophy in 75 years and it happened to be a cup? That stuff can happen through variance and luck. So let's look at the overriding themes here. And you know what? Once you get down to the nitty gritty and you see the data, and then you try to figure out what are the underlying common denominators around what made those teams be able to compete as consistently and successfully as they have, there are 3 or 4 very, very consistent themes. The only one that stands out is Arsene Wenger's period at Arsenal during the early 2000s, when he remained competitive, but didn't have the money. They just built the stadium. They had to pay all of the stadium debt off as quickly as they could. And so every single time that they had a new one of their best players, they were selling them to their rivals, and yet still managing to compete. And the reason being was that was at the very dawn of the internet, before there was like this scout system where everybody knows about every 14-year-old that's coming up, no matter where they're from in the world. Back then, Wenger had, you know, tapped into the French market or wherever he was getting his talent from. Everywhere, right? But that was his kind of point of difference, alongside being a massive overseer of the entire club. But he's the guy that probably disproves the theory that you have to be the wealthiest club to be able to be consistently successful, because Arsenal did it in spite of the fact that they had to lose all of their best players all the time and replace them with unknowns that happened to be awesome. But it's very different. And so going through this process of researching for this video I'm going to make, like I've grown sympathy for not just Tottenham, but for Aston Villa, who have been ambitious now, but the Pied Piper's calling for them on FFP. Everton, who have obviously spent recklessly, but Everton used to be a team that were very successful. They won as many trophies as Tottenham have, give or take, over the years. You know, there's like, you got the 3 or 4 or 5 teams that have won more than everybody else by a mile. And then you have a block of about 7 or 8 different teams that have won a lot, nowhere near as much, but a lot. And then you have the rest that are all just like 1 or 2 trophies over their entire existence. And it does, to me, the way I've kind of pulled it apart, it looks like unless the rules are upheld, enforced, upheld, and the loopholes are tightened up, then I don't see anyone ever getting back into it unless you happen to be another
almost like
trillionaire
closed shop. It's a closed shop. You know, very unlikely that someone's going to come from the Championship and disrupt the top 6. It's going to be very, very, very difficult.
It was only Chelsea and City who did it, and you know what the weirdest thing is? Manchester City's biggest and most successful period has come after FFP was introduced. Chelsea's,
well, of course, because it's like it's closing the door. What they've done is spend all the money and close the door after the horse has bolted. Right. We've done it all now. Let's close the door. Now no one else can catch us because there's going to be restrictions, you know. And Levy thinking we'll build a stadium, we'll build our revenue streams so we can be competitive. But unfortunately,
and to be fair to him, he has done a brilliant job with his vision and his foresight. Yeah. But unfortunately, it's not up to him to enforce the rules, and it's not up to him to make sure. Well, I guess he is part of the people that are supposed to write the laws with a fine-tooth comb. And so maybe he is responsible, but ultimately his vision towards getting us prepared for a future that was set via FFP has been brilliant. But the future that he saw happening versus the future that's currently playing out are 2 very different things.
I would have liked to, excuse me. I would have liked to have seen him have the foresight of Chelsea to see the loopholes and exploited the loopholes on his journey to the revenue stream and finding the promised land of having a stadium that produces all this money, but exploited those loopholes on the way to that journey, like Chelsea and like Man City and other teams have done. And we've had many teams, many investors over many years that have tried to invest in Spurs. And the stumbling block has always been the same thing, that he refuses to relinquish any control of the club, which is
that's interesting, right? So what's changed now, right? Why now has he admitted that not only does he have the duty of care to the shareholders to bring to their attention any investments, but that he is also actively seeking investment? Why now, after 23 years, does he sit there and say, all right, I'm now prepared to be diluted. I'm now prepared to have money coming in?
I'll tell you why. Because when he went to the main man and said, I want more money, he said, hey, I'm not giving you any more money. I told people this over 2 and a bit years ago, right? He said, no more money, okay? Last summer, he was running around trying to get finance and raise money in the city. He's done a fantastic.
What's because he doesn't specify whether it's for.
Well, look, we owe 308 million, right? We owe 308 million currently on our player debt, right?
Yeah, and 600 million.
Not payable. That's not payable instantly. That's payable over the course of their contracts. But you know, he's gone, and you know, to ask for Joe Lewis to give him the money, he's going to be personally diluted out of his own money. He's not going to put any more money into the football club of his personal money. He doesn't really even want to be diluted. So the only way he's going to be diluted is to seek investment, right? How much of that
necessarily he could just buy? He could get more debt. This is the interesting thing, right?
Yeah,
so
but
if you want more money. Yeah. If you want money, but you don't want to be diluted, you have to get debt. But then the debt comes with obviously interest rates, and interest rates at the moment are peak, but they're probably going to come down in the next 2-3 quarters.
But not to what he did, not to that deal that he did.
The deal that he did. Yeah,
that was unbelievable.
Best thing he's ever done.
The club.
Best thing he's ever done. 100%. The timing of that was sensational. But the cost of debt would probably be about 8-9% right now for something with as much collateral as what he's got.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys, if this is really boring for those of you who don't care about money. Just give us 5 minutes. We'll finish the topic, and then we're going to get onto the actual show, which is about the transfer window. So we're getting sidetracked like we usually do. But the cost of debt is 8%. So that's option A is I don't want to be diluted. I'll take on more debt. We've got 600 million quid worth of stadium debt at 2.5%, 300 million quid of amortized player trading debt, which is at 0%, but it's still got to be factored in. So there's a lot of debt, but if you don't want to be diluted and you've got ambitions and plans for the football club, then you can just go and get more debt, just like what the Kroenke did. I know Kroenke was starting from 0 debt and has taken it up to 300 million again, but you can get more debt on your books if you want to. If you don't want to be diluted, if you are prepared to be diluted, then you can sell a slice of your pie. And if he sells 40%, like the stories are, to MSP Capital, and he'll get somewhere between 1.2, 1.5 billion, the next question is, what happens to that money? That's the
elephant in the room.
Does he take it? Does he take it out of the club?
I think, no one's interested in someone taking 25%, all getting excited. MSP Capital, QSI, whoever it is comes in, buys 25% of the club, and all of that money goes to the Joe Lewis Trust in the Bahamas or to Daniel Levy. If someone had turned around and said that 10% or 20% of that 25% is going into buying players and to improve the club, then okay, that's fair enough. But if all the money's just going out, it makes no difference to us as fans.
All of it wouldn't go out. I think there'd be an absolute. I personally, in that scenario, would be a riot, and I'd be like, all of it wouldn't go out. But how much of it would go out? They don't take dividends, right? So apart from their salary, which is juicy,
they're taking money out, Sean.
Well, they get a juicy salary and they get a juicy bonus, but they don't get dividends. But like I've explained 1,000 times, if you were to compare the market cap of Tottenham Hotspur to a traditional market, a similarly priced market capitalization company on the stock exchange, like Pearson is a good example. The CEO of Pearson gets paid, I think he got paid 6 million quid last year, and he's getting paid 9 million quid next year, and the market cap is only slightly higher than Tottenham's. So, but
hang on, Sean, I hear you, but there's a difference here, right? They're getting paid the 5 million and they own the company. So I hear what you're saying, but they own the company as well.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
But that's not like that's not like something to hold against them. That was their intelligence 20 years ago. Right?
They're eating off of both pies. They're benefiting from the.
Well, they are, but they don't take dividends. And so, if that, let's just use the MSP Capital math for example, 1.2 billion. Even though I think that's not 40%, but let's just say it is.
Anyway.
In a world where it was 1 billion came in for 30%, let's just make it an easy number. If Daniel Levy and ENIC took out 500 million of that, and the other 500 million was left in, there is an incentive for Levy and ENIC to do that anyway, because with that 500 million, you can put it to work in improving the outcomes of the club, which in and of itself raises the market cap of the club, which then raises the valuation of your remaining slice that you haven't sold. So there's incentive for them to take it out and take a profit on their trade, but there's also probably more incentive to leave the money in. But my question is always going to be,
will it fund the hotel
now?
He needs money for the hotel.
Right? No, the hotel money was already put to one side.
Right. That hotel. Listen, I was there at the club when they were proposing all this a long time ago, way before the stadium opened, right? And they were looking at JVs. They were looking at, but it has to be funded. My point is will that hotel be owned by the club? Exactly.
Yeah, it will be.
Or will it be owned by ENIC?
No, it's in the subsidiary. It's in one of these 17 subsidiaries. So it will eventually
17 subs.
Yeah, but
let's get back because I think the people in here, we got so sidetracked. It never happens to us normally, does it?
Never happens. We could talk about the financial stuff all day long, but all I'll round off and say is that I want to know why it is that Daniel Levy now is decided that he's looking for investment, because he's.
I told you why.
Well, because Joe Lewis won't give him any more, right? But Joe Lewis hasn't given any more money in 23 years apart from 100 million.
No,
that was it. Apart from that,
I mean, he's made money available, Sean. He has made money available, but he was told when he went to the Bahamas to see him a couple of years ago now that there is no more money. Last summer, he was going around the city looking for to raise finance.
Yeah.
Rates were going up. He wasn't getting deals anywhere near the 2.75%, whatever it was from Bank of America. So,
course,
you know,
yeah.
and
that makes sense, right? If it's cost prohibitive on the interest rates, then,
which is what it is.
Which is what it is. Then
which
what
is what's driven him into this.
As a financial decision making, you're sitting there thinking risk reward, and you're going, if 8% is the price, can the money I'm gonna take, do I have the plan in place, and what is it going to be able to generate, forecasting over however long the loan would be for, enough to outweigh the 8% plus a lot more to make the risk reward worth it? But then if the answer's no,
which I believe it is,
if the answer's no, and I agree with you, if the answer's no, it's difficult right now because of, remember, back in the day, it was a lot easier to win a trophy because you had essentially just United and Liverpool that were the two consistently big teams, always at the top. You had periods where you'd have Wolves that were good, periods where you'd have Everton that were good, periods with Arsenal, periods with etc., periods with Tottenham. But over the last 75 years, the two main teams have been United and Liverpool, until Arsenal got better, and then Chelsea and City. And it's like me in a race. If I had to do a race with Usain Bolt, right? Usain Bolt's going to beat me 100 times out of 100 unless he trips over. So I've got like a fraction of a chance of beating him, but only in the scenario where the one guy that's better than me falls over on the race. But if you're racing against 9 other sprinters, even if Usain Bolt falls over, you're still not going to beat the other guys, right? Yeah. And so when you've got a situation now with Chelsea, Newcastle, Arsenal, United, and Liverpool, all of them doing their bits, maybe Daniel Levy is looking at the scenario and going, as much as Tottenham fans might not believe it, I would love to get us to the point where we're winning leagues and the brand and all that stuff comes in, the money comes in. But ultimately, it's harder than ever. And consequently, the risk-reward balance is actually better for me to dilute and also to divest my or to delegate more, to hand over not just some of the financial responsibility to someone else, but also some of the footballing decisions. And on that basis, Johnny,
he doesn't want to give.
Well, but he and that might be a massive his
inability to delegate. It's a massive block. It's a massive block on, people like Paluca from the Boston Celtics and others who have come to try and buy the club. What I was going to say was, if say QSI came in and gave 25%, that wouldn't enable them to have that extra spend on the new owners, is it? Because a new owner, you're allowed to spend, an extra 40 million?
30 million a year. You can
30 million a year. But here's the rub. If Spurs did get that money from a QSI or an MSP Capital, the gap is so big from our FFP and PSR that we could spend 300 million, right? Or 250 million, should that money be injected, because we've got this great gap between what we've spent over the last few years. So my thing is, if we did get that money in, say, for example, right now, the greatest news for me would be now we are clearing the decks because there is a deal to be done where a company, wherever they're from, is coming in and buying up 25% of the business, and 200 million of that is going to be spent on transfers to take this club to the next level. And can we spend 200 million? 100%, because we've got that gap. Will Daniel Levy spend that money? Categorically not. He's not going to put any more money in. So I think the best hope for this club right now is for that 25% or 20%, whatever it may be, of cash injection, which will enable us to spend that money, because we are probably in the best position to spend on PSR.
Well, you are still limited by the revenues, and I know last year's revenues were our record revenues, right?
We still got a big gap. We still got ability to do that.
No, we've got a big gap historically over a rolling 3-year period.
Yeah,
right.
Correct.
But that rolling 3-year period included 2 years previously with Champions League football. Now we're moving into the final year of the 3 that has Champions League football revenue baked in, and the next 2 won't. And so if we don't qualify, and it doesn't matter if we can. I know we're getting extensions on our license to put 15 Beyonce concerts or whatever in, all that stuff, and it all really does help. It's all incrementally helping lift the number, but the absence of Champions League football is incredibly costly. It really is. It's 50, 60, 70 million quid, depending on how far you get.
70 mil now.
70 mil, right? So look, listen, we could go on about this for hours, mate, but we're 50 minutes in and we haven't even started the actual show as we usually do.
Right, okay.
The last thing I'll say
apologies, guys, apologies.
Whilst with regards to the investment, whilst I have just as many questions around why now with Daniel Levy in terms of, no, I understand what you're saying, why now with Joe Lewis saying no more money, the tap's turned off. I get that. But why now would he want to delegate and dilute his vesture in control, not just money for the club, but
he ain't giving up control. He's a megalomaniac.
Sure. Right, but listen, I've been in boardrooms, I've been in analyst meetings, I have heard and seen controlled chaos where you see 2 people that are having a conversation that have got split ownership, split responsibilities, divisions of labor, and yet they both have egos, they both have stakes in the game, and you know that what you're listening to is surface level banter, but deep down there is a resentment and it's a chaotic boardroom. Sometimes, I know this sounds crazy, but dictatorships, I'm not advocating for a Putin or a Xi or anything like that, but dictatorships are an easier way of life because there's none of that power struggle and confusion around who's really in charge, who's pulling the strings, and in which direction can we go. And as long as your dictator is putting you in a direction that's beneficial, then at least you know, and there's clear lines in the sand. If this MSP Jam Najafi comes in, Iranian American billionaire, I'll ask you the same question. Why now does Daniel Levy want to look for investment? Is it because he thinks peak valuation is in? Is it because he thinks that it's too difficult to overcome 5 or 6 teams relative to how it used to be just 2 or 3? And even if all that stuff's true, then why does Jam Najafi now? Why now for him? Why does he want to come in to Tottenham now at peak valuation? Unless he has a vision and he'll want to be able to, he'll want to control that. And Daniel Levy will say no. So
listen, last time he was at was it the Saudi Grand Prix?
Yeah.
When they met up, Jaffrey for MSP, they were seen covertly having a meeting and he got photographed. I think circumstances have changed considerably, Sean. And I just think that, circumstances have changed. Levy is in a weaker position, the weakest position. He's not going to get the money from Lewis, right? It's in the trust. The kids don't want to know, okay? And do
you think he also thinks the FFP thing?
No, I just think that there's no money from there. It's not viable to take another massive loan from the city at this current rates and uncertainty, especially with an election coming up. Therefore, his only option is to sell. Now, he's having to go back into the marketplace to this very same people he's almost shooed away, right? All this thing that QSI were never there is BS, right? They landed in their white robes at the training ground, right? I got told by very reliable people that's what happened before it was even, in the news, right? So they happened. Paluca happened. Todd Bowley happened through Goldstein and other who brought them in, right? Okay. Bloomberg was interested. There's been lots of interesting.
777 had a word.
Yeah, there's been lots.
We avoided that one,
thank
mate.
God.
Thank
but
God
there's been lots of interested parties. But I think the playing field has moved now, and the fact that he's come out publicly and said he's looking to sell is a different thing. And he's appointed, I can't remember if he's appointed Bank of America. Was it Merrill Lynch?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Merrill Lynch.
Yeah.
Merrill Lynch, yeah.
To appoint it means it's
serious. I actually know one of the guys who works in the corporate finance team over there, and
so it's a real thing. It's really happening, and I just was hoping that the people who had initially made approaches and been almost shooed away by his ridiculousness might have come back. They will want full disclosure as to all the subsidiary companies and all the ring-fence investments that Daniel has been. You've only got to go back to the videos, right? I've been buying up property for the last 10, 12 years. He's got developments all over the place, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure
all the flats that he sold, when because he's ultimately,
he sold to Fairview. He sold a whole development to Fairview. I could go into this,
but a lot of that money, all of that money does get this. You know when you hear people that are on the Levy outside say, "What happened to all the money? It's all supposed to come back. It's all supposed to come back into the club," right? And he has said that, and he has maintained that. I'm not entirely sure where the Northumberland Park redevelopment plan starts and where other purchases and that finish.
What about when he purchased them individually, right? I'm not going to give the name of the person he was buying them up with because I know that person, right? But they were buying them up long before the plans went in, and the development got underway. And, I don't believe...
But these hotels are 100% part of the Northumberland.
But that's part of...
But they have been financed by some of the properties that were sold when they built up those properties, the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom flats. They sold those, and the profit from the sales of that went into the pool to pay for the hotel, or some of the money towards the hotels. And the hotel revenues will sit on the infrastructure and will eventually drip feed back into the club's profits. So when people in Tottenham fans say "Oh, where's the money we were promised?" Well, when he says it will all eventually find its way back in, maybe it will only eventually find its way back in on the sales price.
I don't see it, Sean. I hear what you're saying.
But this is the reason why Chelsea's story is so pertinent, because the hotels that were on their land were owned by Chelsea and the revenues went to Chelsea. And then when they sold those hotels last year, they sold with a lease back. So all of the revenues that the hotels were generating still sat on Chelsea's books, even though the £70 million for the sale also did. And then there's some shell company somewhere that officially owns the hotels, but doesn't get a penny out of the revenue.
I'm not interested in the hotels. I accept the stadium, I accept all that, accept Lily White House and all the rest of it. I'm talking about all the infrastructure and the housing developments and the ring-fenced individual business than anything else.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Full disclosure. When you're buying a business, I want to see everything that's involved in this business, right? And I've got to tell you,
you'll never see that.
And that's the problem. If you,
but why? Like no football club is going to give away.
If I'm spending, Sean, I'm sorry, right? If I'm spending $3 billion buying a club or $4 billion, I want full disclosure, right?
Oh, yeah, they'll get it. Yeah, of course, but they'll be signing.
I don't think that's my point.
They'll get NDAs signed and all that stuff. But
I don't think they've got full disclosure, because I don't think he's declaring every single thing that he actually owns out with the club that might be part of ENIC, but not be part of Tottenham, because it's in one of the subsidiaries. Okay, the subsidiaries that are part of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and the subsidiaries. I mean, the Tavistock Group has got 200 companies, correct? Mm-hmm. Within the Tavistock Group.
Yeah, but Tavistock's got nothing to do with ENIC. I mean,
Tavistock own ENIC. ENIC is part of Tavistock. Okay.
Right. Yeah, but it's like that's like saying
I know, but Sean, you know how we're talking about hiding stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not difficult to hide stuff, and it's not difficult to hide individual property developments that might not be part and parcel of the club, but would be the benefit of Daniel and the ENIC.
No, I hear you. But listen,
that's all I'm saying.
We started the show by talking about how stupid some of the most apparently intelligent people in the game are with their inability to figure out obvious loopholes. And I'll finish this topic.
He found the wrong loopholes.
I'll finish this topic by saying, in spite of the fact that people that are making Premier League laws that are easy to wiggle around if you know what you're doing, you would hope that Jam the Jaffe et al., anybody who was looking to invest over £1 billion for a slice of Tottenham Hotspur, would know exactly what it is that is included and isn't included in the deal beforehand. And to me, most of the things that we are aware of that are revenue generating and that are natural assets and infrastructure within the Tottenham Hotspur brand, we're already aware of, but you won't ever see them broken down on a profit and loss account. That's just not the way it works, unfortunately. They don't have to go into that much detail. But mate, an hour on finance. I loved it. I've absolutely loved it. And there's 800 people in the house. I hope you guys haven't got bored of us too much.
Hit that like button, guys.
Smash the like button. Yeah, drop a comment. I've got a couple of super chats, and then we're gonna get into the actual show. We've done Blaine's member chat. Thank you for the love, my man. Lee Harvey, another one with a member for 5 months. Love the show, guys, but Dave's missing. Is a shame. Yeah, that he's sick. I hope he's better soon. I think he's been poorly for a while, actually. Best wishes to you, my man, Dave, if you're watching. Orox Beats, thank you very much for the super chat. Eze said he's waiting till after the Euros for a better deal, for fuck's sake.
He was always waiting till after the Euros before anything happened. So
if we don't get him... Yeah, I'm going to come to you now on this one, John, because you're obviously a little bit tied in. If we don't get him, we better use those funds towards Gyökeres, Bakayoko, and Ugarte. Just let me get through the rest of these things, and then I'll come back to you on it. Orox Beats again, with a member for 11 months, says Sesko staying at Leipzig. We should move for Openda. It's one of the names on the list I want to talk about. Thank you for the support, Orox Beats. Spurs GCTV saying, afternoon, gents. Smash the likes, folks. Yeah, appreciate that, guys. Appreciate you using your membership milestone to remind everybody, look, you do it for me on the uploads. If you can do it for me, you can do it for Johnny. Johnny brings so much value to this channel. I love him to pieces. And I missed last week. I was so busy. I really missed the Devil's Advocate. That's why we're doing 2 this week. Thank you, though, Spurs GCTV. Blaine's saying, as much as I hate American sports, FFP is one area they do things right. Salary caps, maximum budgets, tight quotas on players, and they dish out proper punishments for rule breakers. Completely agree, Blaine. The only thing I would say is you can take a look at American sports and look at the way that they try to remove competitive imbalance. For example, the draft system in American football, where the worst team gets the best pick or the first pick of the best crops coming through, and the best team gets the last pick, etc. More complicated than that, but that's the general rule of thumb. The problem is that for that to happen, you need a closed system of a sport. And there's nowhere else in the world that plays American football on a professional level where everything goes through it. And you've got the college system that feeds into it. Football is not a system that leans into amateur college players that comes through that system. It also would require, for it to work in the UK, you would need European support. You'd need some sort of process where the entire continent was on board, and the entire continent isn't even on board FFP rules. You've got the UEFA rules for teams that qualify for Europe, but for the 75% of teams that don't qualify for European competition that play in European leagues, they don't have to adhere to the same Premier League rules. They haven't got the same third-party asset valuation rules. They haven't got any of those things. And so there's arguments, again, by some that say FFP in the Premier League makes us less competitive in Europe because Spain, Italy, Germany, and France don't have to adhere to it. In principle, it's a great idea, but for it to work thoroughly, what you would have to have is at best or at least a continental-wide agreement. But even then, you could just see the Saudi Arabians or whatever going and buying up the Brazilian league or the Argentinian league and making that place the place where all the money is.
Correct.
And so, it's not.
Well, Brazil's all right for the moment.
No one's on board.
Brazil's doing right. I think, can we agree, though, Sean, that if it was transparent and the fan base knew, if a club overspends by £10 million they're deducted 3 points. If they overspend by £20 million, they're deducted 6 points. And therefore, you know, we all know it's there. It's black and white. We don't need committees. We don't need panels. The rule's been stated. This is it. You've broken the rules. There is no more compensation. We do not need to be spending £30 million on lawyers' fees fighting our own members. It's farcical. Just come up with some bloody rules, okay? I mean, I know we can't sort out a refereeing rules. We change them every time. But
that's the other thing, isn't it? That's the other problem.
Come up with the bloody rules.
It's the biggest and best game in the world, and the rule makers, the rule
complicates it and destroy it.
And they're just not. There's no consistency, and there's no enforcement, and the smartest guys in the room are looking for ways to circumvent the rules, not to make the rules better, and that is a problem. You know, like it really. I don't know what to say, but it's not going to get any better. VAR isn't going to get better. FFP.
Well, it will, because we got listen. The only reason the semi-automated offsides didn't come in last season is because they were already committed to paying the fees for the contract they've already got for the system they got in place. So that was always going to be the case. But we're going to have semi-automatic offsides next season. I think the big thing for me about VAR, and I've said it since the beginning, why it should never be that the people paying the money that sit in the stadium are the only ones that have no idea about what's going on. Imagine seeing a play and not knowing what's going on. And I basically think if I was sat in the stadium and I could hear, Batley Park, whatever it's called, I'd like to look at that incident. Okay. And you can hear the conversation taking place. You can see the lines being drawn. I feel like I'm immersed in it. It immerses you.
And you can see the replay, right? Because you can't see the replays right now.
It makes it part of the entertainment. Whereas we're sitting around and we haven't got a clue inside the stadium, and it's killing it. But adding that in, hearing what was actually going on, right? And the crowd responded. They do it in rugby. They do it in the NFL. I just give me the calls. Let me understand what's going on. Let the fans understand. And I think this is great.
I agree. Yeah, I mean but that's just one step in the right direction. I mean, there's still the inconsistency, the subjectivity, the fact that I think that there's even, you know, I'm not someone who's going to say that there's corruption or whatever, because I've never heard anything on the whatever to suggest it. But when you see things like Michael Oliver going across with his team, going across to Saudi Arabia midweek to ref a game and getting paid 50 grand or whatever it was for the job, and then comes back and the next Saturday gives doesn't give a penalty when it hits Grealish arm, like all these sorts of things. If like we all know, it's human nature. Corruption is everywhere in every walk of life.
Correct.
The idea that Michael Oliver et al. Are not potentially influenced by the fact that their paymaster happens to also be the chief of the guy of the team that you're managing the following Sunday, who's just paid off your mortgage, because they don't get paid that much. Watch. Like, exactly. You know what? It's ludicrous, and it shouldn't happen. There's so many things that need to change. There's more things wrong with the game of football right now than right when it comes to rules.
I agree.
It's a disgrace. Johnny, I want to come back to Oroc's beats for the Eze update, because I know you're sort of more familiar, without trying to give the reason why away than most of us. What is going on with Eberechi Eze, my man?
So I mean, basically, the plan was never to do anything other than concentrate. The whole concentration, the whole focus was getting to the Euros after his injury, coming back, being forced to come back for Palace due to their situation. Him and Elise both being forced back early, and then both getting injured in the same game. And then they came back, and the focus, as I said, was for him to do his stuff. Was it 11 goals, 4 assists in a very, very, very short space of time. He doesn't need to rush, go to the Euros, perform, and the rest will be. Unfortunately for us, we should have gone in for him last season, but we had other focuses of attention. Right now, he's in demand from every single player, from Man City to, you name it. There isn't anyone who isn't interested in. Say,
does he have a personal choice? Do you know?
I would say.
Are we in the hat?
His agents. I know who his agents would prefer.
Yeah. Okay.
Him to go to. Right. I'll leave it at that.
Let me ask you this then, though, because I've been asking this question 3 times this week.
Supposed to got to pay the money, Sean, right?
I know, and that to me is the big deal, right? 60 million quid apparently is the release fee, plus 8 million in potential performances. 68 million pound.
I don't believe it's that much. Okay, I think.
Okay. So that's okay. Well, I'm just going off what was announced
in the mail. Yeah.
Let's say it's something like 60 million, just for argument's sake, right? Record signing for Tottenham. At the same time, the other most touted link to Tottenham this year, there's three names that are more commonly heard by all of the big ITKs than anyone else, is Ivan Toney, Conor Gallagher, and Eze. Now, Ivan Toney we'll talk about in a minute, but Conor Gallagher's value proposition for me is that he's a jack of all trades in the midfield. Can play 6, can play 8, can play 10.
Yeah.
Workhorse, would really fit. I've got no problem with him coming in. I've got no problem with him coming
in. If
Ange
had a choice, Sean, Gallagher would be above everyone, all of them.
Right. The problem for me, though, is that the value proposition, and he's homegrown, and homegrown counts, but it's important. But if that's 40, 50 million quid, I'm okay with it if that's it. That's fine. If he's going to come in and compete with Maddison in the 10, if he'll compete with Sarr and Roddy in the 8, if he'll compete with beat Bissouma in the 6, whatever. If that's it, I still think we need a monster, a specialist in the 6. But if that's where you want to put your money, Ange, I'll back you. It's your team, and I said I'll back you, so I'll back you. But if he's 50 million quid and Eze is 60 million quid, for argument's sake, the value proposition of each of those players overlaps. Both are homegrown. So you're paying English tax on both. Both can play in the 10 when you already have James Maddison in the 10, so you don't need both to do that. I don't think Eze is a natural left winger in the traditional one-on-ones, take-on specialist winger thing that we're looking for, like a Noosa or a Williams or whatever else. So to me, the argument for Eze, as much as I love the guy, but the argument to sign him, Johnny, is predicated on, first and foremost, he'll be great competition for someone that is already great anyway when he's on form. He's English and homegrown, and he's one for the future that's going to be a world-class player. But the argument against it is you're already paying for a lot of the value in Eze if you're buying Conor Gallagher, and he's not particularly the sort of player that you want playing on the left wing. So I want to be convinced that there's nothing but logic.
I'm going to disagree with you here, because I don't think Eze and Conor Gallagher can be compared in any shape, way, or form. Because for me, Eze is a game changer. He's a guy that breaks the lines. We saw it, against Iceland, when everybody else is picking up the ball and checking back. He took his opportunity. He saw there was nothing on. And instead of checking the ball back like Brennan Johnson does and a lot of our players do, he picked up that ball and he drove into space. And when you drive into space, you create pockets of space for others. And, Ange himself said last season, which surprised me, we don't have anyone in this squad that can change a game. I thought it was a damning comment, to be honest with you. I actually think that if Eze was in this team, that the person whose position would be under the most threat, funny enough, will be James Maddison.
Right, I really do. Fine. That's fine.
Right, I really do. Now, if you're paying 50 million, you're not paying 50 million up front, okay? And if we bought
if you're triggering a release clause, you might be.
No, there will be terms and conditions within that. That will be balanced out in the buyout, there will be terms and conditions there based on most buyouts. It's how much will have to be paid up front, and the terms and conditions how to pay off the rest. Okay, so that would be the club will be looking to get as much up front. The agent will be looking to pay as little up front as possible, and the red spread over the top. So personally, I believe that we should be buying both. I don't believe that having them both here.
Just to clarify, Johnny, yeah. I'm not saying that they're the same player. I'm not saying
no. I understand. You're saying
I don't think Eze can play necessarily in a double pivot 8. Certainly don't think he can play in a 6. And I don't think that Conor Gallagher can play out on the left-hand side where I think Eze does. All I'm saying is that there is some overlap in that Conor Gallagher can play in the 10 if needed to. That's part of his versatility, as can Eze. And if you already have Maddison, all I'm saying is that the value, that the price that you're paying for both of them in no small part is based in their versatility. And some of their versatility, like a Venn diagram, it overlaps.
Look, for me, if you buy Conor Gallagher and you buy Eze, okay, we're already a far more competitive and exciting team. Okay.
If you buy Eze and Gallagher and you keep Maddison, do you still need Bentancur, Bissouma, Skip?
Well, we'd lose one. We'd lose one. But I'm saying we know that Gallagher can play. You know, if Eze's injured, for example, Gallagher, and you got a holding midfielder, Gallagher can play the position he played at Crystal Palace, which was further forward. Pochettino asked him to play a role which was quite mad, really, when you're buying Caicedo, Lavia, and Enzo, £300 million on holding midfielders, and he's got Gallagher playing the role.
I genuinely thought with all these links that we're linked with right now, I feel like we're going to end up. I've got this list on these notes that I sent you for the show that we haven't gone through in any way, shape, or form. I have literally started by saying, we have here we go. I've got.
Let's go through them. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got. Presuming that we have £110 million of budget plus sales, let's just presume that we can get 10 million for Reggie, 10 for Hill, 20 for Hojbjerg, 12 for Lo Celso, 10 for Rodon, 20 for Emerson. That basically gives us something like £200 million budget, right? But when it comes and from that we need a fullback and a left-sided centre back. So two players.
Well, they can be one of the same, can't they? They can be a flexi.
Yeah, you could either get a right back and a left back, full back that can just do like an Emerson Royal type that can do both, or you could get a right back to help Porro out and a left centre back that also is a left back like a Hiroki Ito, which for me makes the most sense. 25 million quid, he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Legendary. When it comes to the midfielders, how many players we've already got? Piere Emile Hojbjerg, Pape Sarr, Ollie Skip, Roddy Bentancur, Yves Bissouma, Alfie Devine's coming back. We've got Tyrese Hall. We've still got Gio Lo Celso. We've got Lucas Bergvall. And we've got James Maddison. We've got 10 midfielders already.
And how many of those? Look, Alfie Devine needs to go out on loan. Bergvall, I believe, is going to be a really good player, but he's going to get time to adjust. Gio is going to go because he's not getting any minutes. Hojbjerg is going to go, whether it be back to Bayern or to Italy or to Turkey. I do not see a place for Oliver Skip. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I don't see Bergvall. I think Jamie Donnelly
makes our homegrown issue even harder, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is. What do you do? Just keep what we did to Tanganga. Just keep him and keep him and keep him and keep him right in storage for numbers. Okay, we're having this mass clear out. Okay, we don't need to use our youth players. Tyrese Hall's a good player, in my opinion. Having seen a lot of the games, I don't think he's ready. Okay. I think he'll spend another. Personally, I think he'll spend another year. Dorrington, when I saw him at Fulham, the Fulham final. When I speak to Jamie Donnelly, he said he was out for another 5 months with an injury. So I don't see Dorrington going out on loan until maybe January. So I don't see Do you think that there's going to be a surprise sale? Because I think there will be.
Well, not a surprise
in
to
the
me, because
midfield.
I want
I
them
think
all.
there will be.
I'm happy for them all to go, mate. But I haven't seen a single link with Yves Bissouma, and I look every single day. I scour. I haven't seen anything for Bissouma. Yeah, as yet, I haven't seen anything for Bissouma. If I'm entirely honest, the whole Piere Emile Hojbjerg story was all about him going to Juve to play under Allegri, and then Allegri's now gone, and they've got the fella from Motta from Bologna in, who wants to bring his own players in, and he plays a different style of football.
But Napoli have got money. Napoli have got money. Napoli have got some money. Look, Europe is
Napoli or
bust.
Atletico Madrid, right? But Hojbjerg has already made it clear that he won't just leave to anyone. He wants to go to a team that he considers of his level. Jose Mourinho wants to take him to.
I can't see him going there.
Never going to go to Turkey. Never going to go to Turkey.
Not in this stage of his career. I can't see it.
If Atletico Madrid or Napoli don't pony up the money, I don't see another European club of the tier that he thinks he's worth playing for, that have the money, that want him, that need him. And so Hojbjerg, I think, is going to be a little bit more difficult to shift than you think. Haven't seen anything for Bissouma. Haven't seen anything for Roddy Bentancur. Haven't seen anything for Ollie Skip.
I'm not interested in Bentancur going. I've got to be honest with you. I think, if he goes back to his form, let's see how he produces for Uruguay. He's playing as their six. So, he'll be, what's then would be God. I wouldn't be surprised if someone goes. What I think is that, I think it's kind of ironic that Europe is skin. Yet whenever we want to buy someone, there's massive amounts of money that's required to free up this player. But when we try to sell, they want our players. Not only can they not afford to buy, they can't even afford to pay the loan fee. Right. Or, we have to subsidise the whole thing, the wages and everything. So I think it's much harder to sell unless you're selling to the Premier League itself.
And so, none of the players that we are trying to sell.
If Paulinho goes, can you see a situation where potentially Fulham might make a bid for Hojbjerg?
Yeah, but they tried last summer. That was what happened at the end of the window. That's why Paulinho couldn't move to Bayern, because they couldn't find a replacement. They wanted Hojbjerg.
Well,
Hojbjerg said he doesn't want to go to Fulham.
But there was a problem as well with Bayern as well with the deal.
True. Yeah, it was. Sorry, I'm simplifying it.
Yeah,
but
it was the Bayern deal that fell through.
Hojbjerg was supposed to be the desirable replacement.
He was out there. He'd had the medical. He'd done everything. Paulinho.
Yeah, but Hojbjerg didn't want to go to Fulham. Look, and I've got absolutely no problem with Hojbjerg believing that he belongs in a team that can compete for European honours in some degree. But
would it be a disaster if Bissouma's? But listen, if someone said to me, Bissouma's going, but we're getting Ederson or we're getting Geerstrude, right? Thank you very much. Thank you for your commitment over the last 2 years. Arrivederci, right? Okay.
Yeah, I expect Emerson to go. Emerson's going to go. That deal looks like it's done. It's just figuring out the final terms of the trade or whatever.
What's
and it
that?
Looks like Emerson to Milan. Milan looks like it's somewhere between 18 and 22 million euro.
Bayern Munich are also interested in Emerson. So,
well, I'd be surprised if it didn't happen. But all of the noise, not that I'm an ITK, but all of the noise suggests that people aren't too far away from the 20 million valuation, and he's happy to go. So
he's got Italian agent. He's got Italian agents, so that's why that one's being led. But Bayern Munich, look, whatever you may think about Emerson, and I know he doesn't have much love at the lane, but as a classic defender in a normal system, not a complicated system like handball, he's very good technical defender. Okay, and he will suit Italy, and he would suit the Bayern Munich system.
100%. And if you can then do a straight swap, I talked about this yesterday. I thought that well, Vanderson from not a straight swap with. I mean, not like a straight swap with the selling.
Vanderson, the right back.
Yeah, Vanderson, the right back from Monaco. I did a load of research on him 12 months ago when we were first linked, because I don't know why I was bored.
Hans Christian Vanderson.
He's He's a far better player for what we need on the ball. He's very, very talented, loves to drive, Brazilian flair. Defensively, I'd argue he's not quite as, even though his stats look sensational defensively for what it's worth. Whenever I've looked at in the deep dive, he doesn't quite look as solid as I would say Emerson genuinely is.
He's not as good as Emerson, so why would we sell him? They want 20 odd million.
Defensively.
Oh, right.
On the ball, offensively, which is what we have 70% of the time, it's chalk and cheese. Van der Sar is miles better. Van der Sar's almost as good as Porro on the ball, but better than Porro defensively, but maybe not just quite as good defensively as Emerson. If you believe Emerson's a good defender, I personally do think he is. I think he's a very good back post defender.
I mean, the way Van der Sar will probably suit Ange Ball is the fact that he can play right back, right midfield, or right wing. So he's got that flexibility to go inverted and actually thrive in the system. But like you said, for me, the worry is quite crucial defending. And the one thing we have to address is this balance between attack and defence next season. I don't want to see another season where we concede 62 goals and I get told, it's the defenders, not the system.
No, I hear you on that. And so look, when you're looking at these options, because you're not going to improve the first team defensively, you're not going to get a better right back than Porro, a better left back than Udogie in all likelihood. You're not going to get a better centre back than one of the three that we already have. However, on that basis, this is where I want to skip ahead of the midfield and right back just for a second, just because I've just gone here. In terms of the centre backs that we've been linked with, think about the money that some of these are going to cost, right? And how much budget we have and where else we need to spend it. We need to spend at least 40-50 on like an Ivan Toney in the striker role. Get that one done, because when you look at the other strikers that are out there, you know what, I'm going to jump around for a second here, Johnny, but just follow me as much best you can.
Okay. Jimenez, you lead, I'll follow.
Jimenez is going to cost as much as Ivan Toney, but there's the risk of him not translating, and Dutch football, we don't know. I love Jimenez. I think he's a really good player, but he's still an unknown.
How old is Jimenez now? Sorry, just to go back.
22, 23, 22.
Right, so you're sort of 22, 23, nowhere near his peak. And then you've got Ivan. I hear what you're saying, and I tell you.
Ivan Toney's 29,
I'm just giving a balance.
Yeah.
Ivan Toney.
And those two are going to cost similar money, different levels of risk. With Toney, you've got the risk of what's the addiction thing? Is it going to relapse? Is he just a bad guy, bad egg?
I'm surprised that Toney got picked to go to the Euros, because I was hearing coming back that there was some his body language was all wrong in the lead up to the squad being picked. So I was quite amazed that he did get chosen. His attitude to Thomas Frank and Brentford towards the end of the season was pretty poor, and he got left out. The one player that I'm amazed that we haven't been linked with, I'm sorry, I'm skipping here. I'm leading you now. It's Brian Mbeumo. Because
sorry. So he's on my list, but I'm going to include him in the wingers list, right? So there's only really like 4 or 5 strikers that we're being linked with, and like all of this, guys. For those that are watching that are trying to keep up with me and Johnny jumping around, all of this is based on this concept of you've got to make your money work. 120 million is what I believe, and I could be completely wrong, but unless Levy has a lobotomy and decides to throw additional risk on, or unless there's that investment that happens very quickly and it's approved quickly and the money's available quickly, which never happens. But in a nutshell, we've got about 120 plus whatever we can sell. Johnny's already alluded to the fact that Europe is broke and most of the players that we have to sell are not going to be wanted by Premier League teams, such as Reguilon. Maybe you can get 10 million for him, maybe, but maybe not. Brian Hill isn't going to stay in the Premier League. Maybe you can get 10 million. Hojbjerg, we've just discussed. So you've got Juve that's no longer probably interested under the Motta system. So you've just got Atletico Madrid and Napoli. Okay, that's not too many options. And I don't know if they're interested. Lo Celso, you might be able to get 12 million from Betis, but then you've got Villa that might be interested. You want
Betis are even more broke than anybody.
Betis are broke as well, right? So tricky situation. Joe Rodon, probably not going to be short of suitors, but he wants to go back to Leeds, but Leeds didn't make the Premier League, and they've got 100 million quid's worth of debt. So that's a difficult one. Emerson looks like it could be done. That's not a problem. But in a nutshell, of the 80 million quid's worth of potential sales, 60 million pound of them are not going to be easy because nobody with money wants them, and everyone that wants them doesn't have any money. And so let's say you've got that 200 million anyway, then you need to make your money work for a striker, a winger, a midfielder, and a fullback, and two defenders, basically a left-sided centre-back and then a fullback that can play in both positions. In terms of the strikers, Jimenez is going to be at least 40. Tony will be at least 40. Boniface from Leverkusen is never going to leave. Sesko has just said he's staying at Leipzig. Alexander Isak is going to cost you 130 million quid, so forget it. Tammy Abrahams, I mean, I don't even want him I like him as a player.
Do you know what I could see, Sean, is at Nestre, because at Sevilla. Because there you got a situation where they'd like Brian Gill, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, they do want.
Not, I can't remember how many goals did he score last season.
Do you mean Yusuf
Nesri?
Nesri, the Egyptian fella? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, do we want him?
Well, no, but I'm just saying where you can potentially do a deal. I mean, he had a very good season last season. No, he wouldn't be.
He scored 20 goals last season for Seville.
No, what I'm saying, Sean, is would he be my first choice? Categorically not. But when you're dealing with a club that wants to get Brian Gill but doesn't have any money,
right?
What do you do?
Yeah, you make it work.
You let him go there, and you say to them, "Look, this kid's going to be something special. We'll take this guy, plus we'll take 30-40% of Brian Gill's sell-on, plus 5 million." Right, that's the sort of deal that I can see Spurs potentially doing. Would he be my first choice? 100% not. I'd rather have Pependa.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll carry on shouting out the names of where we're at with. These are all the people we've been linked with, by the way, and we can go through it. So Tammy Abrahams is a recent link. Look, I like the player, but he had a shocking season. He only played 8 games and 1 goal.
He had a bad injury.
Massive injury, but again, so do you really want to take the risk? And I don't think he's.
I really like him.
I like him too, but I tell you what, if he comes in, fans will melt down about that. If he's supposed to be better than Richie, people won't be on board that one. I can guarantee it. Lois Openda is probably the only one of the list we've got here that is a versatile forward in as much as he's as dangerous on the right, the left, or in the striker role. But will Leipzig sell him, knowing that they've already got rid of Timo Werner to us again, and that Sesko is staying? Maybe if he stays, Lois Openda is more sellable. Yeah, I would take Lois Openda, but he's going to cost you more money than basically any other name on this list, with the exception of possibly Evan Ferguson from Brighton, and I don't even think Evan Ferguson is worth.
How can you pay that money now? How can you?
I don't think you can, right? I don't think you can pay it. So, but Openda for sure is an option, right? I really do like him. Then you got Victor Gyökeres, Sporting, 50 games played last year, 43 goals and 15 assists. I mean, what are we talking about? 58 GA in 50 games across all comps. Unbelievable return from the Swede. But
let's see him do it 2 years in a row, mate.
Well, I mean, he did it before. He did it in Coventry, didn't he?
Yeah, but Coventry, come on.
I know, yeah. But like I'm saying, but he's going to cost. I mean, Sporting don't let anybody go for anything less than twice the actual value. So
why can't we be Sporting? Why can we not produce players? Why do we only buy players that we can't sell for good money? We have changed now. I mean,
Gyökeres came through Brighton. Brighton sold Tony Bloom sold Gyökeres to Coventry for, was it 800 grand or 500 grand or something? Yeah. Something stupid.
What about the guy? What about the German boy that they still own, that they sent out on loan? Brighton. What's his name? The striker. Someone could help us. Brighton player, German, went out on loan to Germany, did very well in the Bundesliga last season.
German striker on loan from Brighton. Dennis Undav?
Undav, yeah.
Undav, yeah.
How did he do last season?
He wants to stay at Stuttgart. Must have done well because Stuttgart finished second. And in fact, talking of Stuttgart, you've got another name here, which is one that I've always poo-pooed a little bit because I was wrong. Because I said a year and a half ago, I said, oh, this guy is just a flash in the pan, one-hit wonder. But he's done it for 2 years on the bounce now. Serhou Guirassy. He's got a £20 million release fee. But I was looking this morning and it looks like Borussia Dortmund are closing in on him, and West Ham are second in the line. So I doubt he'll come to Tottenham. But then after that, mate, so I've gone through all these names, all of the names that we've been linked with as strikers. Dovbyk, the guy from not Genoa, Granola. What's the Girona? Granola, breakfast cereal. Girona, right? But he's 36, played 24 goals and 8 assists. Brilliant opening season, but he's not going to come. Alex Isak, we can't afford. Dusan Vlahovic, like, it's going to cost an absolute fortune. Martinez from Inter, he doesn't want to leave. He never wants to leave. And even Albert Gudmundsson, who can do that left-right striker role thing, I'm not a massive fan of. I don't think he fits the system.
Well, I think he's got bigger problems to fill right now with his allegations being dropped from the Iceland squad.
100%, right? And he's committed to Genoa anyway. And then the last names on here that are barely crossed any kind of real links. Jonathan David from Lyon. I mean, I've never been a fan of his, but he does bang in the goals in France, to be fair. Omar Mamouche from Frankfurt, who scored 12 goals last year. He doesn't excite me. And Vitor Roque, the teenager from Barcelona, who I don't even think he scored a goal. So in terms of like striker options, mate, when you really break it down, it's Jimenez, Ivan Toney, Openda. Even Solanke's got a £65 million release fee.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I long for the days, go back to the days where we had 2 strikers, you know, when we had Berbatov and Keane and, you know, Defoe, like, you know, the partnership, striking David, the modern day Darren Bent. Yeah, Steve, he can be hit and miss, Jonathan David. He wouldn't be on my list. Yeah, we looked at Boniface.
Yeah. I'm a massive fan of Boniface, but he's not going to come to Tottenham. No chance. No. If he's available, again, it's a high demand, short supply striker market. But Ivan Toney for £40 million to me makes absolute sense when you bake in how much budget we have, and then that allows you, Johnny, to then go and think about, well, how do you give James Maddison some competition? Do you do that via an Eze? Who can play on the left, on the right, you know, on the left, in the middle, compete? Do you go after someone like Goncalves from Sporting, who is an incredible player, who can play anywhere in the front, left, right, centre, and is just absolutely insane? Doesn't have the English homegrown thing, but incredible. Danny Olmo, he's got a £51 million release fee. No one else can trigger it yet because everyone's waiting until the new year. But
are we clearing the decks? You know, I'm wondering, are we clearing the decks? We cleared the decks last summer. We cleared them further in January, and we're clearing them out now. Are we clearing the decks for a splurge that's going to wake this fan base up? For me, the only way to get this fan base excited again is to buy the likes of Eze, which will get the juices flowing and get the fans believing that we really are on a journey. Because if we have a series of Google
right now, like if this evening we're playing our opening game of the season and the squad is what it is, but you have Eze in there as well, where do you see Eze playing? Everybody's fit, the entire squad's the same, just
behind
with Eze
Richalison.
So where's Maddison? On the bench?
On the bench, or listen, I don't care what anyone says. Look how many games Eze played last season in a crap Palace team. He scored 11 goals and 4 assists. James Maddison, 28 games, 4 goals. I'm sorry. He needs to up his game. He needs to up his game. But I believe that
he does need to up his game. He needs competition.
Offers us, look, Eze scores free kicks. He breaks the line. He offers us something that we don't have. I don't believe we have someone who can change a game. I don't believe that Kulu is that guy that can go past 2 or 3 players. We've seen it. Look how many games Eze's played this season where you've seen him just glide past players. Yep. He has something special. And that
I'm not poo-pooing him as a player. Yeah. And I've said it on my videos every day. I trust Ange and I trust Eze.
We're not getting Elise. So
I know we're not. Yeah, I know we're not getting Elise. But with Eze, he's one of those guys. I'd rather have him and then figure out a way to fit him in.
Correct.
Even if he doesn't naturally fit, then not have him at all. But if you're going to sign him, and if Ange still has his intentions on Gallagher, and I know everybody in the comments is saying Gallagher's not going, Chelsea don't need to sell.
Yep.
But if there's still that desire, if it still manifests in some level of reality, then I think you have to then sit there and go, well, we don't need Gallagher as a Maddison and Benton and Skip and
you're right.
Bissouma.
You're right.
Someone has to go.
For me, I would be buying Geerstruder and Eze. For me, they're 2 game changers. Geerstruder can play as a right centre back, can play as a right back, and can play as a 6. Not only that, he's an absolute beast. Not only that, I think he scored 8 goals last season from these positions. Okay, we need flexibility. If we lose a right back, we know Geerstruder can come in and be a beast at right back. We know he can roam forward and score goals. We know he can play as a 6. So for me,
but do you think he's not a specialist 6 though either, right?
But I think he's such a good player, Sean. I was hoping
he is. Yeah, he is. He's amazing.
I was actually hoping last season that Arne Slot was going to come to Spurs. He was my first choice, and he would bring Geerstruder with him. Right? Unfortunately, it never happened. I wouldn't be surprised if Geerstruder ended up at Liverpool, but I'd love him at Tottenham. And I think between him, because we need that fight, we need that nastiness, and a guy that can score 8 goals from right back or right centre back, for me, all day long, bring him on.
So here's the conundrum though. For me, I just feel like in the 6 specifically, I don't want a player. I'm making the same argument about Archie Gray, right? I think Archie Gray is going to be. I think he's going to be absolute superstar in 3 years. He can play right back and he can play in the 6 in equal measure, but he's 18 years old.
Buy him and loan him back.
£50 million though, it's ridiculous, right? Even if you were to give them Joe Rodon and it became a £35 million deal, to me, it's too much responsibility to have him. I mean, he could play backup right back to Pedro Porro, no problem. And he can sit in there and mix it up in the midfield rotation, no problem. But I wonder, 44 appearances last year is no mean feat in the Championship, but it is at the Championship level. And so I sit there and think, if you're going to get a player that's a hybrid that can do a bit of both, then to me, you're trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone to save a little bit of money. The obvious one for me is the left-sided centre-back spot. Lloyd Kelly was the most logical, homegrown, free, left-back, left-sided centre-back.
Always going to Newcastle.
He's going to Newcastle.
He was always going there.
With him out of the way, the other left-sided centre-back options that you've got that we're linked with is John Clare Todibo, who 100% is going to Manchester United in the summer, in my opinion, or next year once the takeover thing's done with Ratcliffe. Lloyd Kelly's gone. Murillo at 60 million quid for Nottingham Forest is a wonderful player and will be an absolute top centre-back. But they want 60 million pound. You can't drop 60 million pound on a guy who's going to come in and be back up to Van De Ven. Doesn't make any sense. So the only logical link that we have
is Ito.
Yeah,
but I actually like
left-sided centre-back.
Yeah, for me, better quality than that for me is Hincapié. who can play left back and left centre back, who's at Bayer Leverkusen, who's in and out the team right now due to how well they're playing. But again, there are players. I don't see this thing. This is not a first 11. All I hear Spurs fans say is he won't start the game. Right? The amount of injuries we have, he doesn't need to start the game. He can start next week, or he can start in Europe, or he can start in the Cup. Because bet your bottom dollar, same again next season, we will be ravaged by injuries because our medical team's rubbish and our training. Look how many of our players were injured in training as opposed to being injured in a game last season. Have a look at that. I would say that this thing where he's not going to get a game is absolutely nonsense.
I'm not. Yeah, listen, I 100% know that what happened with Dragusin was just pure bad luck in that we needed him all autumn and winter. The second he signs, you then get your boys back and they don't get injured again. It's just sod's law. But in reality, we've got more games to play. There's going to be injuries. Van de Ven's thing, so there will be the overlap. I just think that again, for me, it comes back to trying to make your money work. And if you're going to drop like a Jared Branthwaite, I love Jared Branthwaite. I think he's going to be a superstar. Excuse me, but does he want to come and play even rotation?
Can't spend 60 million. Look,
you can't spend 60 million on a single player where you already have a world-class player in that position.
Correct, right? But I can spend 30 million and 25 million on a player that's going to be.
Hincapié is going to cost backup.
Yeah, but who's to say that Hincapié won't come in and be better than X, Y, or Z, or someone else to come in, a right back and be better. Personally, I like Archie Gray. I think I loved Adam Wharton, and I really wanted Spurs to buy him. Yeah. I wasn't sure about Alex Scott, but I never expected Wharton to take off in this manner. I think there's so much snobbery from this club looking down on the Championship. Time and time again, we've watched these players, Jared Bowen, Grealish, Eze, what's his name? Ollie Watkins. I can list the amount of players that Spurs have watched in the Championship and never gone to buy.
I've just got to close.
And yet, what did we do? We committed to Jack Clark. We committed to Jack Clark, which is which is madness. I like Archie Gray. I like Somerville, and I like Nonte. And if they want Joe Rodon, by all means have him, and let's trade off one of their players. If Archie Gray was available for reasonable money, and I mean reasonable like 30 million or something, and we could get 15 for Rodon, 12 to 15, then I'd be willing to buy Archie Gray and leave him at Leeds for another season to develop. I'd rather he was there developing with them at 18 and come back to us at 19, nearly 20, the sort of age that Walton is, that is coming to the Premier League. So I don't know. I think something's got to happen sooner or later. Well, we're going on these tours, Sean, and we're going to have half of our squad missing. I don't know what's going to happen there. We're off to Asia. I can't see. Well, Lo Celso won't be there, but be surprised if Bentancur or Romero will be there, or Dragusin will be. Well, he might be there. They might be out early.
It's going to be a disastrous of a pre-season, but it'll be the same for most teams. In fact, if anything, the Tottenham team have probably got the fewest European.
Quite poor. We're not even.
I think only four players have made the Euros, and I don't know how many made the Copa America. But
three in the Copa America, but out of those players that are playing in the Euros, only one's a starter.
Who? Hojbjerg.
Oh, sorry, two are a starter. Dragusin and Hojbjerg.
Yeah.
The rest are on the bench. Micky Van De Ven's not started the last two games. Didn't start against Iceland. and Vicario is not in the team. Donnarumma's been back in the team again.
Do you think that I see people on Twitter looking at that saying 0 English representatives in the Euros hasn't happened in 30 years or whatever? Do you think, and then they're saying shows how far we've fallen off. Do you think that is
it's a concern?
Yeah, but is it causation, correlation? Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is that I would argue, like, again, the opening gambit of one of these videos, I'm giving away so much of it, but the opening gambit of one of these videos that I'm making is it says Daniel Levy and ENIC have been in charge of Tottenham for 24 years and only secured 1 trophy. Statistically, our worst period in terms of trophies, and ultimately our least successful era in the history of Tottenham Hotspur.
Correct.
But to me, it doesn't feel that way. We had opportunities along the way. We've had 6 finals. We've been in a couple of kind of title runs for the majority of the season. We got to a Champions League final. Had we taken any of those major trophies into our locker on any one of those occasions, it wouldn't be our worst period. It would be our most successful period.
But history doesn't remember what could have been,
yeah, of
what
course.
might have been, unfortunately.
No, 100%. I'm not making the argument that it does. But when I look back to when I first started supporting Tottenham in the early 90s, when I was old enough to know what was going on, and I remember the players that we had, the teams that we were putting out, the struggles that we had. Yes, we might have had a couple of good players here and there, but there was a lot of absolute dross dotted throughout the squad. And I look at Tottenham now, and I think, all right, I know we haven't got a trophy, and I know we don't have very many representatives at the tournaments this year, but I would still make the argument that our team is full of a lot higher quality than it ever was in a previous era, that in my lifetime at least. And I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this year's going to be different. Every year is dreams of signing the big names. I think we've been starved of that. It's been a long, long time since we've really... Van der Vaart, I think, was probably the last signing that I can think of that where we all got excited, where the fan base went into meltdown. And that's why I'm thinking that this transfer window, Eze, is it more
important to get Eze just because of the fact that it's I hate using the word statement signing, but it's because it is something that everyone can get behind, even if it doesn't quite fit right now on paper.
But I think he's perfect for Angeball, number one. Number two, I just think that he's the only signing that can unite this very toxic fan base right now, and that people can get excited about. I wasn't excited about Maddison. I got to be honest with you. You know, I knew it was happening, but I wasn't excited. Why wasn't I excited? Because his blooming injury record was shocking. Okay. And, could he play Angeball? Well, it proved he couldn't really play Angeball. It's so congested in the middle of the park. He can't express himself. He doesn't have the space that he needs. And so he has to drop deep. And, 4 goals says it all, really. The club needs to move forward, and fans are not the fans that don't know, like we do, so many players, doesn't want to have a signing where they go, who? And have to Google him, right? They don't want that. They want someone that they can identify with from day one. And Eze is that player. Eze is the standout signing. Yeah, I do.
I would argue, of the names on this list, I've deleted a lot of them because
I'm talking about as a midfielder.
Yeah, okay. As a midfielder, okay. So let's look at the midfielders we've been linked with, just to run them through for you.
Yeah. Okay, so Isak, I would say if you signed Isak or Eze, those would be statement signings that the fan base could actually say, "Wow."
Yeah. Do you know what?
Finally,
I'm looking at the rest of these names in the midfielders that are either 6s or 8s or 10s, and then the wingers that we've been linked with as well, because we haven't talked about them. And I'll run through the midfielders. Ederson from Atalanta. But I think he would be an absolute
he's a top
world-class player, but I don't necessarily think he would come with the same like wow factor, because a lot of people probably don't follow Atalanta that closely. Hugo Larsson from Frankfurt. I mean, like massive talent for sure, but no one's going to get excited about that name if he comes in. Mats Wiefer from Feyenoord, similar to Larsson. You know, brilliant player, 6'8", stats look sensational, a lot of risk in their transition, but they're young players for the future. Not going to get excited. Morgan Gibbs-White. If we end up with Gibbs-White ahead of Eze, people are going to lose their shit. Not that Gibbs-White's a bad player, but it's chalk and cheese in comparison. And the price tags, if Eze's 60, I think Gibbs-White is 45. So you might as well, for me, you might as well go and be smart. Go and get what's his name? Ito for £25 million release clause. Then you've got your left back covered. You've got your left-sided centre-back covered. You can sell Reguilon, but keep Ben Davies just on the off chance, or one or the other. So you're almost paying for itself in that regard. And then you've got enough money to go and not have to get a Gibbs-White, but you can go and get your Eze. The other names we're linked with, Amadou Onana at Everton. Everyone loves this guy. When he's good, he's brilliant, but he's so inconsistent and lazy to me at times.
But a lot of people, can I just ask you, you know, a lot of people say about Morgan Gibbs-White, okay? I mean, Morgan Gibbs-White, there is a reason why Morgan Gibbs-White is not going to the Euros, and he is. I mean, you know, I think Morgan Gibbs-White, 37 games, 5 goals, 10 assists in 3,162 minutes. And Eze, 27 games only, 11 goals and 4 assists, over double in only 2,000 minutes. So he played 1,000 more minutes and scored less than half the amount of goals. So I just, you know,
the value prop for me is clear. I'd rather pay the addition. I'd rather pay them more money for Eze all day long, every day, because I think
quite a few would like Morgan Gibbs-White.
Well, but Morgan Gibbs-White, he obviously,
I'm not saying he's a bad player.
He's a very good player. The one thing that I think that Morgan Gibbs-White has about him that I think Tottenham desperately need, and I know you talk about it all the time, is bite. It's edge. It's a grit. It's a one of that kind of like, you know, Hugh, I'm coming for this ball. As a forward player, he loves getting back and nailing people from behind. He's got one of those mindsets that I think he will become a very, very good player. Is he naturally as good as Eze? No. Does he naturally offer the same output? No. But is he, look, in a world where Eze turns us down and goes to United or Arsenal or somewhere else, then you got to shake hands with that reality. And Morgan Gibbs-White isn't. I don't hate that idea of him coming to Tottenham, but for me, Eze gets the link all day long. And so, but if we're looking for statement signings that wake people up, look at the other names we've got: Quentin Timber from Feyenoord, Jurriën Timber's brother, good player, intelligent player, but who is he? Florentino from Benfica is a player that I mentioned a while back. I think he's a star in the making. But he won't come with any. No one's going to know who he is. Who watches, unless you watch Portuguese football? I really like Florentino, but again, not going to wake anyone up. Jota. Now let's move on to wingers. Jota, the old Jota from Celtic days and Saudi Arabia. Like, no. Rafinha, it's going to cost you 70 million quid. What do you think about Rafinha, Johnny? Do you like Rafinha?
I don't want to pay 70 million, 60 million pound for him. No. You know, they want to give us him, you know. Look, for me, I'm fed up with my wingers checking back. I want my wingers to pick up the ball and drive to them, win free kicks. Why did we only win 2 penalties the whole of last season? It wasn't because referees were poor and we didn't get the rub of the green. To win a penalty, you have to drive into the box. We were playing horseshoe football all season. I can't bear it. Pick up the ball like an Eze, like a Rafinha, drive into the box. You'll win a free kick. You'll win penalties. And that's when you'll score goals. So
More
for me,
Johnny, get in the right. I said this on my video yesterday.
Get the right winger.
Get the right winger. And it changes everything, because in the first 10 games of the season, if you look at the average position of our opposition, the back four, they were all fairly broad. They were split apart because they were worried about the wingers sat on the touchline.
Correct.
And then as soon as they realized that these guys aren't that much of a threat, the template emerged to go narrow as a back four and let them have the ball and see what they'll do. And that's when the horseshoe football started. You put a brilliant left winger out there that you give him the ball and he's got a 4-yard head start before the fullback gets to him. Terrifying. That will change things immediately. They'll have to adjust. They'll go 2 yards broader. And you know what then happens? All you then need is your number 6 or your number 8, whether it's an Eze, whether it's a Gallagher, whether it's a Gerstruida at the right back, or a Pedro Porro, or a number 6 like an Edison. You need someone who can beat your first man. Even like Bissouma, for example, is brilliant at beating the first guy. Once you do that, and your back and the back four of the opposition are spread out because they're concerned about your better than you currently have wingers, then that allows Maddison to have all the room in the world to be able to do triangle football, and great things can happen. You have to keep the opposition guessing, but none of that happens unless we change our wingers. And that's why it's so crucial that not only do we get an Ivan Toney or a whoever, Gyökeres, whoever, to compete with Richie, but that we also get someone better than Sonny, Werner.
Well, my first choice would be Nico Williams, without any doubt.
I agree. Nico Williams would be awesome. Bakayoko, someone in the shout. Zane Woods, Bakayoko is a brilliant shout for that sort of thing. 100%.
I just cannot watch another season. No disrespect to Brennan, but you got to grow some balls, man, and just take them on every time. Drive past the player. I don't think he has the football brain, personally. I think he has fantastic pace.
He's a pace merchant, but without the ball, he's brilliant. But with the ball at his feet, he runs at half the pace. Correct. And he doesn't have he's not quick foot. He's not like I don't
think he's got the one-on-one take-on ability.
Imagine you had like a Neymar or like a Vinny Jr. or someone with that skill set just in our system on the left or on the right that can just cause mayhem to the fullback.
Don't want to bring his name up again, but Eze has, I think, the most take-ons per minute in the Premier League.
Has he? Has he? Eze?
Apparently, yeah. Per minute, like per minute on the pitch.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. See, the biggest problem for me about the idea of having Eze on the left is that I just don't see him as a take-on specialist. But if that's true,
but he takes him on in the middle of the pitch, doesn't he? Picks up the ball in the middle.
Yeah. I'll take you on anywhere.
Anytime, any place, anywhere.
Anytime, any place. There's a few other names here. Andreas Skov Olsen, 27 goals again off the right-hand side. I love this guy. I don't think it's going to happen, but I love him. Callum Hudson-Odoi, Johnny. It's never going to happen, is it?
Hudson-Odoi. No.
Odoi, 50% sell-on, goes back to Chelsea.
Here's a guy who was going to Bayern Munich before he got injured. All right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Before he got injured, and he's got that. Every time he goes down, there's the Achilles might pop again, right?
Correct.
Which is a worry.
Have we done Zubimendi yet? Have we gone through Zubimendi?
No, he was on the midfielders list. Yeah, I've got on. I forgot that on the midfielders list we've got Archie Gray, Ugarte, Zubimendi, Ezekiel Palacio.
Ugarte. Now, Ugarte, I really wanted him before he went to PSG. Right? Same. He knows he's a Uruguayan. He'll be playing at the Copa America. He knows Bentancur very well. They link very well. They wouldn't need 6 months to get to know how to play with each other. And I would be over the moon if we got Ugarte as playing as the 6. He's young enough. He's good enough. And I think the bonds with Bentancur would be fantastic. They already got an understanding internationally. I'll be glued watching the Uruguayan games to see how Bentancur and Ugarte play, to see how they get on.
It's interesting because a couple of weeks back, maybe about 2 months ago now, I did like a top 10 DMs that I'd like to see Tottenham look at. And when I did my research on that one, at the time, all I could find was reports saying Ugarte might not be playing too much at Paris, but he's very happy. The club love him. There's no intention for him to leave. So I said on the video, like, he'd be perfect, but you know, he's not gonna like. There's nothing to suggest he'll leave. But in the last week or two, there's lots of rumors saying that he actually is unhappy and he does want to move on. And at 50 million quid, he's 22 years old, 23 years old.
Mate, I'd pay that money. I honestly, I would pay that money. I think he's again, he's nasty. He's a nasty individual with a lot of talent, right? And I like that. Yeah. Call me old-fashioned.
No. Listen, I think one of Tottenham's biggest mentality things, not just learning how to win, not just learning how to not be wound up by people like that donut who throws the darts,
Mope,
but also a mentality of like don't react, be on the offensive with the aggression, be like go into a game from minute one and be spicy. And that takes individuals to like a Romero. He's got it, and not many of our other other players do. You know, to be honest, I look around them. I don't think Johnson's got that nasty little side to him. Sonny definitely doesn't. You know, James Maddison doesn't. They're all kind of too friendly, and I think that Tottenham need to up the levels in that regard. The other names on there, just for the central midfielders, we got Zubimendi would be awesome, mate, but I think I don't think he's leaving. We mentioned Archie Gray, Morton Højlund is a beast of a six.
Florentino.
Yeah, I spoke about Florentino. I love Florentino at Benfica. I think he's great. He's got a playing partner, João Neves, as well, who's even better.
Yeah, a really good player.
But there's been no links to them, mate.
What about Morton Højlund?
Yeah, Højlund. Yeah, he's
Højlund?
£80 million release fee from Sporting. So,
I mean, that's just ridiculous. Another defensive midfielder, but he's also an animal.
Yeah. Hang on, I must have missed a super chat. One sec. Where's that super chat? Danny Kiriakou, boys, do you fancy one more opinion on the show? Sorry, mate. When did you send that? Almost an hour ago. Sorry, dude. I didn't see it. Thank you for the super chat. We're 2 hours and 10 minutes in, mate. So we're probably going to round off in a not too distant future, mate. But I appreciate the super chat, mate. Another time, champion.
This was one of our concise devil's advocates of just.
We'll be here until 5 o'clock. And then after that, Ezequiel Palacios is the only other midfielder that I'd love to see come in, but I don't know if he's going to leave because now that what's his name staying at Leverkusen. In terms of wingers, mate, in terms of wingers that we're looking for, here's the list. Here's the list of people we've been linked with. I'm just going to read them all out, just name after name after name. You tell me. Marcus Rashford, Pedro Neto, Wissa from Brentford, Coop Miners from Atalanta.
Wissa and who I mentioned before.
And Buemo.
Ryan Mbeumo. I don't understand why we've not been linked with Brian Mbeumo. Young, fast, quick, direct. My type of player.
100%. Love him. I mean, Coop Miners is. I put him in the winger section, but only because you could put him literally anywhere. He's the most versatile of all. Correct. He's like a Swiss Army knife, this guy. He can play absolutely anywhere.
Marcus Rashford should stick to school dinners. I'd rather he concentrated on that than come to us.
Yeah, no interest in him. A lot of people were interested. No interest, no?
No interest.
What about Kubo from Real Sociedad?
I don't know a lot about Kubo, to be honest.
I think he's Japanese, young, like a tricky direct winger.
Well, he's appealed to. He loves a bit of Japanese. There's Ange.
Yeah, a little bit of sushi.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: Anthony Gordon, right? Newcastle have got to sell someone. They've either got to sell Bruno. They've either got to sell Alex Isak.
We should have bought. Listen, I remember watching Spurs versus Everton. Not last season, the season before, when we played them off the pitch. Everton was shocking. And yet all I could go on about when I came out was that Anthony Gordon's unbelievable. He chased and he chased and he chased. Even though the rest of the team were absolute dog poo, right? He was unbelievable. His determination to win and the drive to win and win the ball was all I could talk about coming back from the game when I should have been talking about how great we were or how bad they were. He was fantastic. He showed up the rest of the team. And he had that nasty edge. For me, I would have taken him again, sorry, Brennan, over Brennan Johnson any day of the week. And he costs less than Brennan Johnson.
Do you know what, though? I was exactly the same, mate, when in the WhatsApp groups and that, when we were linked with him. I remember Danny Kiriakou being one of them. If we link to Tottenham, if he comes to Tottenham, this is the end of Tottenham Hotspur. You're delusional.
Really?
Blah, blah, blah,
well,
blah,
Anthony
blah.
Gordon.
Yeah, but Anthony Gordon. And I was the only person in that. It was in the We Are Tottenham TV WhatsApp group. And I was the only person that I was like, you guys are wrong about Anthony Gordon. He's going to be a brilliant player. And everyone told me I was mudded. And then I've subsequently reminded them at every opportunity that they were, in fact, the muddies. And I am now the mudder. Noosa, we've mentioned Nico Williams. You'd like to see him. Goodmanson, we know, is in trouble. Antonio Noosa, Brentford bound, maybe again, the injuries behind him. He's the link. Would you like to see him come in? Or do you think Tottenham needs to go a bit bigger now, like more established?
I think we need bigger now. Let's start making statements. Okay? Yeah. Let's start making game-changing statements. Players who I know, you know, Bergvall, I think, will be a good player. But, you know, he still needs to develop. I just want a player now that we know. I think fans are fed up with the journey. Yes, we're building. But we've been building for 23 bloody years, for God's sake. 7% cider. Oi. Cider.
I've been good for 2 weeks. It's my first bottle, by the way. So it's one bottle of... This is a slow slug.
You got rid of the Jamaican, the other one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the what's that called? I forgot. By the way, I swear to God, I think there's a business sitting, because I live in Surrey, and around here, without trying to sound, any particular. Don't take this the wrong way. Take it just as an observation. The demographic is such that if you were to walk into a local convenience store, it's unlikely that you're going to find a bottle of Magnum or on the like the Jamaican, whatever they call it, fortified.
Listen, I was in Hampton Court.
They're amazing.
I was in Mosley. Is it West
Molesey?
Molesey.
Yeah,
I was in Molesey, Thames Ditton, Hampton Court last week. Visiting some friends. Spent some time down there, walking along the coast, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
You probably saw more deer than you did ethnic minorities.
I did. I didn't know that. I thought ethnic minorities had been removed from the area. I swear to you, honestly.
No, listen. Yeah. It's a multicultural area where I live, but in terms of like the local convenience stores, you're not going to find any Magnums, and I think it is absolutely delicious. And I've got like half a mind to go and supply some. And then get it out. I'll do a little marketing campaign on the local area, or I'll get all the kids smashed on it. They'll be out. It's absolutely sensational. Victor Vaughan agrees. Absolutely. Hang on, I live in Surrey, Sean, and there's Magnums in every Londis. Not in where? Really? I've never seen them. To be honest, we haven't got Londis where I live. We have co-ops.
Honestly.
Mate, last couple of names to round off the show for you then. These are players we've been linked with, right, as wingers. Mateus Sule, the youngster from Juve, the Argentinian next, whoever, what they call him, the next...
we've had the next everything, haven't we?
Next everything. I don't know if he'll... I think he's going to stay anyway, because I think Bologna's manager wants to keep him. So,
who are the brothers we were after? Sule?
Oh, yeah. Doué, isn't it? Yeah, Doué brothers.
The Dewey brothers.
I haven't.
Not the Doobie brothers.
I haven't got them on my list, but I do have for you. Marcus Edwards is the last name I'm going to ask you.
Thanks, but no thanks.
No interest in Marcus Edwards.
No.
Really? Okay.
No. The fact that Amorim, look, he left us because of the issues. Okay, he's gone there and he's produced more issues, and he can't get in the team because of these issues. We don't need him to come back. You know, would you take Jadon Sancho? Desiree Doué, that's it.
Desiree Doué, yeah. Would I take Jadon Sancho? Depends on the terms. Depends on I'd need him to have a conversation with Ange. I need Ange to be convinced, and I would need, if we're taking him on loan, I would need Manchester United to pay 50-60% of his salary, and then I think I'd give it a crack and see if we could do something with it.
So is he? For me, he's a better version of Marcus Edwards in the sense that they're both trouble. They've both got issues.
Yeah,
but one will deliver, I believe, on the pitch, and the other one might not even turn up for training. So it's a good point.
It's a good point. I just think that Marcus Edwards, like homegrown and club trained, and like next time we speak, when we get Dave back on the show tomorrow or Friday, I want to go through with you guys a bit more about the youth system. I want to talk about this guy, this Southampton fella we've just hired. Do you know anything about him?
Chapman.
Give a little bit.
Listen, Chapman. Look, Chapman. He's only at Southampton for a year, okay? And he was at Swansea for 5 years, and he produced James and Joe Rodon. So I'm not going to get excited. Okay. Did you see the advert? Spurs put out an advert.
No.
Yeah, they put an advert out. Hang on a second.
What? 50% off t-shirt last season.
Let me read it to you. It's quite an interesting one. Hang on a second. Hang on. I've got it here. Hang on, let me just find it. Oh, what did I do with it? Oh, here we go. Here we are. Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Tottenham Hotspur is expanding our workforce that supports our youth academy teams. And we're looking for passionate coaches and assistant coaches to join us on a part-time and full-time basis. Do you have the drive to develop the next generation of players? We're hiring coaches for our under 9 to under 12 age groups. If you hold UEFA B license and you have experience in youth coaching at an academy, we want to hear from you. The roles available: under 19, under 9's lead coach, part-time 15 hours. Under 9 assistant coach, part-time 12 hours. Under 10 lead coach, part-time 15 hours. Under 10 assistant coach, part-time 12 hours. Under 11's assistant coach, part-time 12 hours. Under 11 lead coach, part-time 15 hours. Under 12 assistant coach, part-time 12 hours. And under 11 and under 12 lead coach, full-time 35 hours. What we offer at Spurs: competitive salary and benefits.
Okay.
So that's not right. Professional development opportunities and a dynamic and supportive working environment. See all our roles on our website and apply now to be part of the developing future stars of Tottenham Hotspur. So, guys, if there's anyone out there that's got
I know of one particular man who likes to tell the world he's got a UEFA B license and part of an academy, you know?
So get on down there. Sure.
Then.
Give him a
bus.
No,
I'm not a coach, mate. I can't even wouldn't even call myself a bus, let alone a coach. But I feel like look, I'm not for me. I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to tactics, but you know, there is someone in this community he likes to tell everybody, remind everybody that he is a UEFA B level coach, although you wouldn't know it because you'd never hear a tactical insight in the slightest from him. But you know, surely it makes sense. Go and get yourself signed up, and then you get all the inside scoop, and you know, get those subscribers, bro. Anyway, Johnny, mate, listen, it's been a fantastic show. Listen, to everyone that's watching, there's been 900 people in here pretty much the whole way through. We spent the first hour as an impromptu, and I actually enjoyed that part probably the most, but I don't know if the crowd did. But Johnny, we got so much more to talk about on the business side, so much more to talk about on the transfer side. Last question, let me round it off for you. Last little tidbit. How many players are we signing this summer? And in your realistic dream world, what does it look like?
I think we'll sign 5 in total, including loans. Okay. Maybe might do 6 with a loan to buy option. Spurs usual. I think the usual, Sean, where we're left playing Russian roulette, like we were getting rid of Reguilon and not having a backup left back. for Destiny, like we did getting rid of Davinson Sanchez before we bought another right centre back, and then we lost Romero. So I think we'll have another one of those situations. I don't know what it is. Could be we get rid of Gio and not buying a creative midfielder, and Maddison gets injured, and we've got no creative midfielder.
So you're basically not confident that we're going to walk into next season with solid options in every position.
No, I mean I don't want to see the tree in the goal next season. God forbid Vicario gets injured and I've got to watch Timber like we did at Fulham in the cup at the penalty shootout. You know, I don't want to watch that. I'm sorry. There are lots of top young goalkeepers out there. You know, let's move on. We need backup left back. I'm quite happy though, Sean, to have someone. If we do Ito from Stuttgart,
I like that Ito guy.
I
think Ito makes a lot of sense.
Not brilliant in the air though, I've got to say, and we do need
25 million quid though, mate, that covers 2 positions.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
He does. I agree with you, but again, we're weak in the air, and that's a failing. And we already have Micky Van De Ven, who's 6'4" and is not great in the air. He needs to improve that part of his game.
True.
The right back, if we sell Emerson, you know, who are we going to bring in? Are we going to bring someone in who can play that position? So again, for me, I want someone who's challenging Porro. I don't want to see Porro just, I'm going to play every week. I'm never going to be challenged. And that's why I'd like a Geerstruder, as I said, who can play right centre-back, right back, score goals, and play as a 6 if need be. And he's nasty.
Okay.
We need a backup.
So I agree on something. So if we could get Geerstruder and Ito, would you be happy with those two as your defensive?
Yeah, Geerstruder, Ito, and Eze. Thank you very much. I can do without the striker, and we'll
those 3, and you're happy. Just those 3.
Well, I would be on my way to being happy, very happy.
And then
on my way to be very happy.
A striker, a realistic striker.
We do need a striker, but could we play one of the ones we got as a false 9? I don't know.
For me, if we don't, I know you've got your loyalties to Richie.
No. For me,
if we start this season with the same striking options, i.e., Sonny, who doesn't do it for me against the template that's forged.
Yeah.
Richalison, who's only on it when he's in the right state of mind, and that's volatile. And Dane Scarlett, Valiz, you know, or we're shoehorning Brennan Johnson into that position.
Well, we got Parrott's probably.
Sorry, for me, I'm happy to see Ito come in as a cheap, versatile player. Happy to see Geerstruder or Anderson come in if it makes sense, and Emerson's going the other way. And then in the middle, Eze, I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see a proper 6, a proper specific 6, though, that like a Ugarte. I doubt it will happen, but someone like him. And then in terms of the wingers and the forward options, I need to see a winger that's better than what we have. And I absolutely need to see a striker who I think that we can expect 20 goals from if we can support him. And that,
listen, if Richalison goes,
the most obvious option to me of the 25 names we've gone through is either going to be Jimenez or Tony, and I probably would go with Tony, despite his age and all the other risks. I just think
I think that, Sean, it doesn't matter if Richie stays, we still need another striker, and if Richie goes, we need 2 strikers. You cannot go into a season with 1 striker. But you know what I was saying is, you know, Havertz did very well as a false 9. Whether or not we've got someone that can potentially play as a false 9, should we come across and have injuries. But I never want to see Heung Min Son playing as the 9 ever again. Sorry, I couldn't bear it. It was awful. Can't keep the ball, and the ball just kept coming back, and hence the reason why, you know, we conceded so many goals on the counter. But no, I think 5. I'd like to see 5 players come in. I think we need as many as 5. I still would not be surprised if someone comes in with a bid that we sell someone that we're not thinking about selling.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it either. And I'm okay, mate. I'm at the point where I want to give Ange what he wants. If he's okay with getting rid of certain players that we're not expecting. And I think that would be a hang on, Johnny H3232. I think that would be a midfielder. I think that you might, if he has ambitions to get a Gallagher and then Eze, I don't think you need both unless you're selling one of.
Well, he might well be. I mean, I'd sell Skip.
Yeah.
But give him what he wants, what he really, really wants.
100%. Johnny, mate, I've loved it today. 2.5 hours always flies by with you. Thank you so much to everyone who's been around. Johnny, your link is in the description. Guys, everybody that's here, there's still 700 people that are watching at the moment. Before you duck out, just hit the like button on the way before you go, but also just hit that link quickly, takes you to Twitter, smash the follow button on Twitter, on Johnny's Twitter, and then from there you can find all of his socials and stuff. Johnny, anything coming up on Twitter, mate?
No, I'll be on. I think I'm on with Brian at 6 o'clock tonight on Tottenham Talk Show. Tottenham Talk Show. Tottenham on Tour, where we'll be, guess what, discussing Spurs transfers. If you go to my Twitter, there's a link there to my Instagram, which is now growing again after the last one got removed. So if you're on Instagram, I post all my videos there, a lot longer videos than I can post on Twitter. So give us a follow there if you get time. And as always, great to be on here with you, Sean.
Yeah, love you, man. Great show.
Great show. Top
Appreciate
show.
You, buddy. Appreciate everyone. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for your attention this afternoon.
Thanks for everyone in there for listening to us.
Yeah, and you'll see us. Hopefully there'll be another Devil's Advocate tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Friday, with Dave and Johnny. Also, I'm going to be doing a show with Henry. Also, just for what it's worth, because I've been so busy, I promised a little while ago that I'd be taking on anyone that wanted to do the Levy out thing and all that stuff, with the exception
I've got someone for you.
Yeah, like I said, loads of people. Like I promised them they can and they will, and then things happen. Things get in the way. But I've got Billy Cairns coming on. He's in Germany right now for the Euros, but after the group stages, he's popping back. So 27th, 28th, whatever of June, he's going to be coming on. Ryan Isaacs is coming on. Even the guy Dan from Hotspur Hood, who I should probably do it in public. When I was on Henry's channel a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and it was in the midst of all of that nonsense with Stelios, because he'd been on that show with Stel and that other clown, Tommy Talks Ball, had been on, and I made a bit of fun of Dan wearing glasses indoors. I didn't realize he had an illness, epilepsy or something, so it was poorly timed. Didn't realize there was a justification for it, and once I found out, I apologized to him on text and stuff. So
like Richie Sunak moment, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You say things in the moment, and then you have to own it if you make a mistake. And listen, anyone that does wear sunglasses indoors for no reason other than they think it's cool, I think that is the saddest thing ever. But if you actually have genuine reasons to, then the saddest guy is the guy that didn't realize it. Johnny, that is pathetic. Take them off. Anyway, he's coming on the show as well, as are a few other Levy outs, and Danny Kiriakou apparently wants to come on as well. So there's going to be lots of debates. But for what it's worth, guys, just so you know, in the research that I've been doing for my videos, I am more informed with facts and stats than ever to dilute the argument that you will present for the 1,000th time. Anyway, I love you all. Like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks again for the super chats. Johnny, love you, man. I'll see you soon. Get over to Johnny.
Come on, you Spurs. Let's have some big signings.
Bye-bye.